was coming on shore in this area,
we're just like, I think we're like up high because we're in Tampa, so we're just going to be getting rocked.
And I'm not saying we're not. I'm saying the odds are less likely that it will be as widespread with this offshore flow. Wendy, does that answer your question, or were you not listening because you were looking at the monitor?
No, I think it answers. You were very thorough, and I think the folks in Citrus County, thank you. I don't know if you got the Hernando
Thank you for
County.
the Canadian 60. Here we go again.
I did, and again, my point is,
hey, but thank you for the PayPal. Jamie, thank you for the Venmo.
So if we're not talking about your specific spot right now, it's because your threat
you guys might be
is
trolls,
very low, and we're not getting any reports of anything.
Thank you for the 20 on
Remember when we were
Cash
saying this?
Guys, the only reason I can read the Cash App ones is because a notification pops up on my stream.
So my producer just said we're going to go and talk to Kylie in Seminole, and we've already seen how bad the wind is in Seminole now. I actually think it may be improving
got
shortly,
a penny
but
dirt
not right now.
donation here. I'm a starving child, but I wanted to give you my last cent. Thank you, Parker, for the 1 cent.
Yes, Dennis, we were listening to you guys about the wind starting to die down, but honestly, we are not experiencing that yet. I'm not here with Robert
Thank you for the PayPal dollar.
We all agree. Within the last few minutes and right now, this is the worst that we've experienced. You can see that I'm bracing myself against our vehicle right now just because we don't want to take any chances. Where we are right now, this was not in an evacuation zone, but so many people have boarded up. It's dark behind me because the power is out, but what we have seen, and I heard Michael Paluska talking similarly, what you might at first mistake as lightning is really transformers going off. We've seen the lights kind of going in and out around this area. So as we've gone around earlier today, of course, we are in place right now. I'm able to quickly go into the garage if anything gets more dangerous, just so people at home realize kind of the setup that we have here. But a lot of people in this area have boarded up for this very reason that you're seeing right now. The wind, the extreme wind that, again, we're hearing should be dying down soon, but out here in the field, at least where we're at right now in Seminole, in Pinellas County, we are not experiencing that at this time. We can tell you we've seen no cars going by. A few hours ago is when they said first responders can no longer be out on the roads because of these conditions. We've seen the van honestly like rock back and forth a bit behind me.
See it kind of faded and just glitched.
Hey Dad, I'm gonna need you to make the green screen a little bit more realistic.
Robert is eyeing for our
us.
that is just going
ferociously
back and forth with the wind in this area.
Thanks for cranking it up.
Thanks, Connor's dad.
Thanks for cranking up the green screen.
As this storm makes its way in, it's still very strong where we are.
Don't crank it up too much.
Dallas County in the Seminole community right now.
Wow.
All right, thank you, Kylie.
Let's get out of the car and jump.
He's in Bradenton.
See what
and
happens.
Really having some extreme weather out there. Paul?
Yeah, the wind is now furious and punching and pretty punishing.
Why are you out
here? We got the live truck here to shield us a little bit, but that wind is coming right at the house. You already have one of the palm trees down right here. You see that? That blew over. Some debris from who knows where out there flying around here in the driveway of this home. I see off in the distance, Tim, there's stuff flying around back there. So that's always a concern, but this wind is the most intense that it's been, and it's been like this, by the way, guys, non-stop for, I would say, what do you think, Tim, the last hour? Yeah. The last hour, non-stop punishing wind, and it's coming toward the house, so it's switched back around, and it brings with it the kind of rain that just kind of goes sideways and in all directions. It's loud, it's damaging, there is no power. Homes are riding it out, some of them in boarded up homes, and they don't have power. The only thing you hear is the wind and the rain. And not to be, too dramatic about it, but this is the kind of wind that that leaves a mark, that does some damage. We mentioned earlier how the wind was changing direction.
Hey, Paul.
And it's definitely done that.
Paul, it's Dennis.
Go ahead.
I want to interrupt for you for a second. So you're on the back side of the eye right now, and there was a 102 wind report at Sarasota Bradenton Airport. So that's the highest we've seen. How far are you from that airport? Because you're in the same spot.
I don't have the exact mileage on that, but we are far. Okay. Well, there you go. I got somebody's raft from a nearby pool that came flying by.
Yeah, I mean, you are in the area with the strongest wind that's been reported with this storm so far. The backside of the eye, 102 miles an hour. And we froze. Let's see if we get him back. Nope, but we'll keep trying. Obviously, weather issues, 102 mile an hour winds. So we'll go back to him if we can. But as we said, we've been showing a lot of wind. Eye is now down to the south. Landfall, Siesta Key, we had a report of 120 mile an hour wind there. Moving on shore, offshore flow here, blowing the water out. I think, Greg, you got to figure, I've not had reports, but the bay, matter of fact, look at the, I'm curious if we can look at the water levels.
Yeah, they've been going down.
Yeah, you said they're going down, and my guess is they're going to
All right, Connor's dad, you can turn it down a little bit.
Yeah, crank it back down.
This offshore flow, which we should for at least a little while longer. What you got?
Red goes, this is fake.
There you go. McKay Bay is 4.5 feet below where it should be. So it is certainly possible, and we are obviously not encouraging anybody to go out to the bay. But I'm sure if there's people out there going around, they're going to see an extremely low, maybe not as dramatic as Irma. The entire bay dried out. It pushed all the water out. But overall, our biggest concern right now, twofold, and surprisingly, it is not surge. Yes, there will be some surge.
Perfect eye
but
wall
considering the original forecast from the NHC of 10 to 15 feet, nowhere near that in our area. You go south of Sarasota, you go Siesta Key, you go Charlotte County, you go Fort Myers,
like to
they
watch
will
Twisters.
see an
Like the
extremely
movie.
high surge.
Yeah,
That's what we
right
do in
now,
real life.
for our
I'm the blue
area,
dot on radar, guys.
let's go ahead and cover everybody. Citrus and
Out here living
I was going to say you
Twisters
could
in
put
real
on
life.
Jason's mic, but I think he's out somewhere. Yeah, okay. Citrus and Hernando County picking up some very heavy rain.
Coming
winds
into
gusting
Brandon,
65.
which is just east
All right, Pasco
of
County,
Tampa.
65 to 75. Hillsborough County, 75 to 85. Pinellas County, 65 to 85. Polk County, 35 to 55, but you will be seeing an increase soon.
And also the
Green box
actual
there, those are
location.
flash flood warnings.
The city is going
Those
to be
are
on the
also-
bottom left side.
This, as we said, catastrophic flooding. That's the area
Green
in
dot's
red.
the radar.
And that is not, thank you, Jay, that is not something that has been observed. That is something that is radar indicated with what appears to be an all-time 1-hour rainfall record. What was that again, Eliana? So we're going to show some quote from our producer, really bad rain in Tampa. So let's go. Are we going to?
Reporter's name is
Ruda. Okay, so Ruda with really bad rain in Tampa. What do you got for us?
Yeah, you guys, well, the rain's been coming down all night, really, but now it's really wind. It has not let up. The howling, I mean, the trees are now starting to sway. The ground is a mess with debris. We've heard those explosions. Those are transformers going out. What looks like lightning, but isn't. But is those transformers going out. Now, this area does still have power, but we took a look at those maps. There are a lot of people that are in the dark tonight as Hurricane Milton now really shows its power. There's a 7-Eleven behind me, and you can really see that wind kind of coming off the roof there. And we're standing under an overpass, so we are in a safe area, but you know, all you can really say is what a mess. Some of the people that have had things blocking their windows to try to prevent this, it's gone. And there's been things going down the street, debris already coming down. Of course, this area already getting hit by Helene, just one thing after the other. We were in Davis Islands yesterday. We talked to one man who's just saying, I'm tired. You know, this has been such a rough 2 weeks for this community, and they're doing the best they can. If anything, this community is resilient, and you really see that through how they prepared for this. But stepping just a little bit further, the wind is going, you know, north, south. It's really, we're in the thick of it here. It's kind of no which way direction. There's really no way to tell what way the wind is going, but this is West Tampa, and this area is really taking a hit, and we just continue seeing those transformers going out. We thankfully in this area still have a little bit of power here, but gosh, this thing is mighty, and branches are starting to come down. Some trees coming down as well. I don't know if you can see the debris, but it's coming down the street, and thankfully everybody's out of this area, no cars. But really, once the morning comes, this will be a sight to see. I mean, people's livelihoods really will be turned around. We're hoping that everything stays safe in this area and around the community, but we're going to keep you guys an eye on what's going on here. But strong wind, strong rain, yeah, it's happening here in Tampa.
But Ruta, I mean, looking at what I'm seeing here from a viewer's perspective, it looks to me like a lot of those folks have power still.
Yeah, and thank goodness. I mean, they were preparing for the worst. We could see the prep that these neighbors were doing, and there is still power in pockets of Tampa. So I guess it just depends on where you are. Now, flooding, of course, you guys have mentioned that all night. Now, we're in a little bit of an elevated area, so there's not too much going on here. Over there's some power lines, so we're staying away, but that's where you really are starting to see the water accumulate. It's really up to your ankles now, even higher. That's just taking a little bit of a dip in the road, and that's where a lot of those houses are. So I'm sure they're taking those extra precautions.
The Miami Heat just got
staked out as we are going to see a lot of that flooding in this community, already seeing it a little bit downstream.
Thanks, Ruta. Appreciate it. Heavy rain and some power outages in Tampa. We also have our Adam Walzer. Adam is live downtown, I believe he's in Ybor, with some very heavy rain as well. Adam, we are hearing, I'm not exaggerating, we are hearing this studio creaking and groaning with the wind and the rain. So where you are right now, it looks like it's about the same. I mean, it's definitely coming down.
Oh, it's coming down, Dennis. And what's happened in the last few minutes, and you're the meteorologist, so you probably know why it's doing this, but the wind's changed direction. So one of the things you might see is some of the water on our camera lens. But just in the last few minutes, this has started piling up right here. It was actually blowing the opposite way a little while ago. So I don't know what's going on, but this wind is just whipping around, and the rain is just coming down in torrents. I've covered quite a few hurricanes here since I moved to Florida about 11 years ago, and I think this is kind of the worst one that I've seen since I covered Hurricane Katrina in Mobile back in 2005. So this one certainly, I know we were sideswiped by Irma and Ian and some of the others in Idalia, and weren't hit directly, but this certainly is showing a big punch with that heavy wind gust and the rain that just is non-relenting. It's just been coming down since 2 o'clock this afternoon, and I'm surprised, frankly, that we're not seeing more flooding on these streets right now, because it's just been coming down, and the wind's now pushing it towards the buildings and into the streets here where it wasn't before. But certainly we have very, very lousy conditions here.
I'll tell you why, Adam, and let's bring in Greg on this as well. You answered your own question in the sense that the winds have changed, and what was blowing offshore and allowing water to drain, you're now clearly that water's not draining. Greg, are you seeing this, that the winds changed recently, and now all of a sudden that water's building up?
Now
and
the
he's
water's,
in Ybor.
And there are some of these tide models that were showing that as the eye passes Tampa Bay, the wind turns onshore, and you're going to get a bit of a water rise behind the storm. But here is the deal. When that happens, the winds will be lighter, the center will be farther away, and it is not going to be the equivalent of what would have been a surge as the storm is moving in. So, yes, we could see, and I think it is forecast.
I will say,
to see a low
good job on the power infrastructure.
Overnight,
wherever there's power, they did something right.
Now, the other thing that's also happening, Dennis, is we're heading.
Morgan, thank you for the super chat.
Yeah.
So the high tides in the Bay Area between midnight and 2 a.m. So there's some tidal.
Can you take 1 second to mention people may die in the storm? I have family there, and I'm worried. We have been periodically through the night, but that is a good reminder. There are people out here
what's
that
going
are
on right
getting
now.
impacted.
There's the radar behind me.
Obviously, in a very bad way, so we definitely feel for them.
And where all the nasty wind is starting
We
to
just try and
shift
keep
away.
positive energy around here, you know?
It's shifting away from Tampa. Now, here's who's getting it. Northern Polk County, you are getting hammered right now. Polk City,
We definitely hope it's not as bad as
Gibsonia, right across 98.
what I thought was going to
And then it
happen.
kind of
I
turns
think
back
might have
down,
happened.
right down
I think it was
98, or
pretty
I
darn
should say
bad.
301,
South. What's up, Tanner?
down
Good to see you,
into
brother.
northeastern portions of Hillsborough County. So it's this rain band back here. This is
I know it's
the
right.
heaviest rain band. And it's
Right up
in
here.
this that you're going to see some of the heaviest winds as well.
Yeah, it's just
I've
like
got
double
all right, Forrest Saunders is in Northport right now. southern Sarasota
Take
County.
this exit here real quick, guys.
Of course, you're getting
Look
into the
everything
backside
over.
of
Catch up on a
Milton.
few
Tell me, what are you
donuts.
seeing? How have things changed there for the last
I
couple
thought it
of
was like half gone. It doesn't carp over.
Same
We've got
here.
so much work.
Looks like
I
an
would say
eighth part of
this
the
is some of the
summer.
strongest wind that we've seen.
Not
In
the
fact,
case.
I've got a bunch of trees that are upwind of me. And when these gusts start
Yeah, they
happening,
give it a super
it
chat.
starts blowing seeds into my face. Little acorns
Almost
that are
there.
pelting me. Fortunately, we are still in a safe place. I promise you very much that I am safe, but it is very annoying. But this is actually some of the worst conditions that we've seen here in Northport. I mean, I think initially when the storm came through, we did get a lot of rain and we did get some wind. But I haven't seen wind like this yet in this system. So, I mean, it's hard to stand at times. I'm not that much of a weakling. I'm about 170 pounds. I think I'm a little closer to 175 these days. It's been a tough couple of months with politics. But I will tell you that it has definitely picked up. We lost power here finally in Northport. That was something that we had been kind of waiting to see if it would happen. We'd seen some flickering of the lights, but it finally did give way. And we lost power maybe about 45 minutes ago to an hour. So, you know, hey, kudos to the utility system for hanging on as long as it did, but here we are now in darkness, with the exception of City Hall, which you might be able to see over my shoulder there. That is a generator. Unfortunately, we do not have one. We're just running off the old car battery right now. But we are, again, safe, but the winds, I'm telling you, they are killing me right now.
All right, Forrest, we'll hang in there. We will check back with you as you continue to cover Northport. Dennis, did you want to show any other counties? No, he says no.
I can take it here if you'd like.
Yeah, please do. Great.
I can take it in the weather center. We are kind of checking out the studio just behind the scenes a little bit. We're hearing creaking. Our studio lights are swaying. The monitors are swaying a little bit. So we're just checking out, making sure that the building is okay. And we think it is. I think what's happening is that some of the set pieces, the way they're attached, the building is flexing and they're moving a little bit. The natural motion of the building here with the wind blasting from the north and east. That may make you feel better, but hearing the creaking behind me doesn't always make me feel better. I did want to show you where Forrest was, though, here before we go down to Sarasota. He is in a part of the storm where there's not a lot of rain. It's down here in Northport. And they're still getting some really strong winds. And this is that backside. The stronger side of Milton has been that western eye wall.
Actually, it's a great illustration with you there. We can hear the winds. We can see the tree. We have had 165 kilometer per hour wind gust so far in Sarasota. That has been the highest wind gust that we've seen. It's been very impressive. I know you've been keeping an eye on the storm surge as well in that area. How has it been lately? Does it continue to rise where you are?
Yeah, Kim, it's definitely continuing to rise. And I'm going to get a chance, after I'm sort of finished with this, probably have Nate step in a little bit. And then what I'll do is I'll go down to the bottom to sort of check out that surge and try to get a little bit of a shot of it to show you what it's like. And I'll pass that back to the Weather Network because that surge is just continuously coming in at this point. And it may rise higher and higher. At this point, I'm not sure how high it's going to be here, but with these kinds of winds pushing it, it's going to be high.
Yeah, no kidding. Barely hanging on there, Mark. My goodness, those winds are so powerful.
Yeah.
We've been looking at this.
Yeah.
The power outages continue to rise. We're looking at well over 1 million now. I know that Rachel and Rhythm have been keeping tabs on the numbers. Last time we saw it was 1.2 million without power. And when we're seeing wind gusts like the ones we're looking at with you, Mark, I'm only anticipating it's going to get worse before it gets better.
Yeah, unfortunately, Kim, I've been saying already, the fact that the power has stayed on here in downtown Sarasota, it's a testament to the engineers and then the people who put together the electrical system in downtown Sarasota. Yes, we have seen, oh, there we go, another big green flash that I saw reflected on the building here, probably behind me. That's, giving an indication that as good as the system is, parts of it are beginning to fail.
I think, yeah, Dave needs to give that camera another wipe for you. It's it's all coming at you right now. And this is what people don't realize. You know, once the eye of the storm makes landfall, it doesn't mean it's over. It's far from it. And certainly some parts of Florida are expecting the worst a little bit later.
In the middle of the eye, all of that has changed as we really feel the effects of this backside of Milton. Greg, I'm just curious, what kind of gust?
The friction of the land, the topography of the land, and they start to weaken, and that's what this storm is doing, although where you are in Sarasota, Mark, it doesn't look like it's weakened at all.
Hold on. What was that? Yes.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, is there somebody in there, trapped in there? Oh, we saw him come. We saw him come in. We saw him come in, but we didn't, like, he just sort of stopped there. Yeah. Oh boy. Okay. Well, I'm gonna go down there and check. I'll come with you guys in a second.
What's going on, Mark?
Yeah, Kim. So we're just getting a report. When we saw that, remember that car that we were seeing earlier? The gentleman here was saying that there may be somebody in that car out in the surge at this point. He did say that the car looks like it's shorting out, so we're gonna get a chance to go down and check it. I'm gonna put my helmet on and be as safe as possible, and then and go down and see if someone does need a hand down there.
Okay.
With the gear that I have, I can do that. Not without risk, but if someone's trapped there, they need help.
Okay, well, we'll let you go there, and we'll talk to you in a moment. Good luck, Mark, along with some other storm chasers and other people who are weathering out this storm in the parking garage in Sarasota, Florida, which is a very sturdy structure made of cement, obviously made of concrete. He is there, but there was storm surge beneath the building on the side in the alley, and he had earlier seen that a car was attempting to drive through that storm surge. So now he's gone because they think that somebody may be in that car and may need some help. And that's what happens in a storm like this, in a powerful storm that's not only bringing heavy amounts of rain, winds exceeding 165 kilometers per hour, but also that storm surge that is pushing right onto land. Let's take a look at the numbers now with Rachel and Rhythm.
Yeah, so let's first take a look at some of those power outages. Rachel and I were just taking a look at that. You have about 1.5 million or 1.5 million people out of power just as of right now, and the storm surge is going to really enhance that as well right along the coastal lines. But the wind gusts further inland, that's going to be one of the stories that we take a look at. Now, something very interesting that we want to highlight, and Rachel, I think you can take over for this, but Tampa is actually looking at 4.5 feet of water levels below normal.
Yeah, it's all due to the wind direction, which is important because you can see in Tampa the wind is coming off from the land to the sea. So it's actually taking that water and pulling it out of Tampa. So we're seeing an anti-surge, if you think about it, that the water is actually receding in the bay. Meanwhile, it has to go somewhere, and where that wind is pushing from the water to the land, that's where we're seeing a storm surge, or the water levels rising. So all the way from Bradentown, Sarasota, Venice, even farther south into Naples, we're already seeing that the storm surge is over 5 feet. And I'll do the conversion for our Canadian audience.
Now with that, so I just want to highlight Venice. That is one of the stats that we have, 5.5 feet of the water level. So Rachel,
which is close to just shy of 2 meters. So we're at 1.67 meters of storm surge. And looking at other reports on Twitter, the surge is rising fast. We saw how fast the change was in weather conditions, and the surge is going to be a part of that. So surge is rising, our wind gusts are rising. There's reports of furniture and roofs flying downtown Sarasota, and the storm surge is inundated for folks in and around Venice. I know there were some comments on our YouTube questions about how is Venice Beach, how is Venice Bay in Florida. Florida, and it looks like that the surge is nearing about half a story high in some of the visuals I'm seeing.
And I just want to highlight this real quick. You can really start to see some of those official bands of that western portion of the or the wraparound of this hurricane starting to make their way into Sarasota. And when we talk about some of those wind gusts, Rachel, we saw it live while we were still chatting with Mark, where he just felt that one gust, and it really just kicked off from there.
I'm curious to know what's going on with Mark, as you know, it looked like somebody got into some trouble. I think we have Nathan Coleman. He's going to be up next, and he can give us an update on what's going on. Nathan, thanks for joining us now. I know you've been with Mark this whole time and witnessing what's going on. Can you give us a bit of an update onto what's going on below you?
Yes, Kim. Well, I've been standing off camera because it's so. The winds have picked up so.
He was inside when a tornado went near his home. We're going to take you there next, but right now we actually found the Wells Fargo Bank.
To inspect what's going on, because, like he mentioned, that surge has been coming in, and those other gentlemen came up to say there was a vehicle within the surge, and they're concerned there was a person in there. So he went down to go check that out, and so I'm just holding the stream down right now, of course. And tough to keep my earpiece in here, but yeah, the winds have just really ramped up on the back side of this. Just incredible. I mean, you know, when we were in the eye wall.
From this roof and getting it into this garbage can, you guys were just talking about, we're expecting those winds to pick up. He was concerned about a rain ban coming through, so he is out here completely on his own, trying to get whatever he can, whether that's wood, the gutters, anything that's come off from this roof, taking it from the asphalt where it is and getting it into the dumpster. If you guys can walk with me, oh, we're just stepping in some water. Got to be careful.
Below where Nathan is, we're talking about the potential for flying debris. I mean, Mark said he was going to throw on his helmet. That's the best thing he could do, because when you think about it, head injuries would be number one when we're talking about flying debris.
Oh, totally. And the storm surge can be so deadly too. I mean, we went down. This is the safest place to be. We're elevated. It's a strong structure. We can still get the wind coming in because there's open air here. But we only went down during the eye because it was so calm and you could see the debris kind of flying around. Then we started seeing the storm surge come in, so we went out to take a look. But the winds picked up too much. It was too dangerous. We made the call, let's get back in. And that's exactly why, when you consider someone was still out driving around in it, I mean, you want to be in a safe, elevated location when this type of event is happening. So we'll wait. We're waiting for Mark to get back. If it's not soon, I'll have to go down and inspect how he's doing.
Okay, Nathan, I'm curious to know what's going on when, hopefully when Mark comes back. Obviously, you're up in the garage with Dave. We can see that the power is still on, which almost seems miraculous to me, considering how powerful the winds have been and the sheer number of people who have lost their power in Florida this hour. But have you been seeing the explosions of the transponders throughout?
Oh, all around us throughout this event. I mean, it's just been flashes, green flashes of the sky. But somehow this building behind us has power, this parking garage has power. So, I mean, I think I want to hire this electrician because he did a great job here. But, you know, you just see the trees behind me. I know it's dark behind me here, but just swaying, moving back and forth. The branches coming down, and you can see the water on the road as well from up in this elevated position. And just that roar of the wind, it's so loud right now. So, you know, I wouldn't want to be down there on ground level in any way.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, you're in a safe spot and you can stay there, Nathan. We'll check in with you in a little bit, take a little break, try to get somewhere that you're not in the middle of the strongest winds. We appreciate you that you're there because, wow, it's a hard storm to stand in. The people who go down into these storms to report on them are giving us some vital information and letting people know why you probably shouldn't be in a hurricane, why you shouldn't stay because of how powerful the winds and how dangerous it is. And we've been talking about storm surge, water levels. Look at these winds. I mean, you guys have been paying close attention to this, Rhythm and Rachel. I suspect we'll continue to see some very high numbers.
Absolutely, Kim. When we are talking about some of the wind gusts, I do want to first just begin and highlight the fact that when it comes to Milton, it is Category 2, so those winds are starting to get weaker, but it's going to be that wraparound that we continue to watch, and that's what we've seen. So as we're taking a look over the last hour or so, we're starting to see a lot of these outer winds right here. Let me just highlight that for us real quick. These are those offshore winds that have been causing so much of that, those gusty conditions, and all of those are starting to move into areas like Sarasota. That's where Mark is, and that's where Nathan is.
Because you never know what's going to be coming your way. All of this is going over the back of me right now. I'll step in a little bit under this overhang just to get a little bit of cover. But man, you're starting to hear the howling. You're starting to hear that quintessential sound of a hurricane coming through. This is not like we saw when we were in Venice for Hurricane Ian. The winds for Hurricane Ian never really stopped. They were sustained hurricane force. There we go. So a lot of these houses are new construction on this section of the block where we're at. Big block homes, new. There you go. All right, it's blowing through. It is just so creepy to know that tornadoes spawn out of this. We've got more lightning than I've seen. We've seen more transformers exploding. Power's been out for several hours now. And then I'll just kind of peek over here. I have a wall here. I have a big brick wall right in front of where I am. So there's no debris flying towards me right now. And if it does, it's gonna go over my head. But man, when you think about a storm, and we saw what this was, when this was a Cat 5, thank God we had that wind shear that kind of broke it away and lightened the load. That doesn't mean that we're not gonna get what we got. But imagine a Cat 5 when it was just north of the Yucatan and before the eye wall replacement. Thank God we don't have a Cat 4, Cat 5 right now, because that would be unreal. We know this area is gonna get hit. We know people are gonna lose everything. Lives will be lost, we do know that, and it's the worst part of this storm. But as I think I was listening to Paul Legrone, we will rebuild, we'll clean this mess up. You can't save your own life if you didn't evacuate now. Honestly, of course, we shelter in place, it's too late. You wonder who didn't evacuate and who's still in their homes on the barrier island. I pray to God that people heeded the warnings that we've been saying and they got out of here. I'm gonna tick back a little bit, just show you a little bit more of our scene setter. We've been getting these bursts in and out. We've had some really intense gusts. And so we're gonna pan across and just show you that. There's one more. So, we'll get you back to the radar, Greg. But, here in Sarasota, we're absolutely right now getting hammered by the back end of the eye wall. We'll send it back to you.
Michael, stay safe down there. That wind, incredible. Dennis, you can really hear it.
You can,
behind
yeah. And we got several things popping up. First of all, storm is now Category 2. It is weakened from Category 3 down to Cat 2, winds of 110 miles an hour. Flash flood warnings now include Pasco County and northwestern Polk County. We told you guys when it got to the point where you are at the worst, because at this point, that's what we're focusing on. We're focusing on the areas that have seen the worst weather. And it's still all of Pinellas County, most of Hillsborough County, northwestern Polk County, and all of Pasco County under flash flood warnings. And that is until 4 a.m. Again, radar indicated catastrophic flooding. I just went out for the first time to look at what's outside our studios. We are located directly across the street from Raymond James Stadium. So Himes Avenue is between us and Ray J. And Himes Avenue is a river. It is literally a river. Wendy's looking at me like, what? I mean, I've worked here since day one. I have never seen the water like it is right now. I mean, there's obviously no cars out there, and it is a river. And it's because we have seen such ridiculous rainfall totals. Here are some of those totals. Now, it says over the last 24 hours, the reality is it's been the last 6 hours. We have seen over a foot of rain across southern Pinellas County. Most of Pinellas County has seen 10 to 14 inches of rain. So that's why we are having flash flooding, and it's not over. I mean, it just isn't. You've got Pasco County, anywhere from 6 to 8 inches of rain from Dade City, Wesley Chapel, back toward Land O'Lakes, over toward Holiday, Hudson, Newport Richey, that entire area. And Pasco County, it has not been raining as long as it has in Pinellas and Hillsborough, at least the heavy stuff. So these totals are even more impressive because they're rivaling what's been going on in some of the other spots in a shorter period of time. Northwestern Polk County from Lakeland back up toward the northwest, 8 to 12 inches of rain. And again, the point is, you note that 4 a.m. this flash flood warning remains in effect. So that's 5.5 hours from now that it's going to continue. This is getting to the point where there might not even be a definable eye anymore. This is getting really, really close to converting to a non-tropical system, and it's elongating, and in doing so, the wind spreads out. And obviously, so does the rain, because rainfall totals are just off the charts. There it is, winds of 110 miles an hour, making it a Category 2 hurricane officially. East-northeast winds at 16 miles an hour, the pressure continuing to rise. Latest wind gusts, 84 miles an hour in St. Pete. And speaking of St. Pete, our Eric Waxler is live in St. Pete, where he's right in the middle of it, literally the strongest winds on board. Eric, how goes it?
Yeah, for sure, Dennis. Just when you think we've seen everything that Hurricane Milton can bring to us, it just steps it up a notch. And again, we're just off of Central Avenue, a couple blocks from Tropicana Field, and we've seen the wind and the rain going in a southwest kind of circular motion around the hotel that we're in, and you can really see it with the sheets of wind right there on the corner of 17th and Central. And if you look further down the street, you see some trees down. I mean, nothing major. Most of the trees here are still standing, but this wind and rain has been just so heavy now. I mean, we're not talking about 90 minutes. We're talking about at least probably 3 hours of the heaviest rain that I've seen in quite some time, and no sign of it letting up right now. And if you look down, we've heard transformers blow, as you've heard other reporters around the Bay Area mention. And that sound, I mean, there have been a couple times where I've heard a sound that it sounds like an airplane is flying over our heads. And it is just the wind going up against some of these buildings here in downtown St. Pete. And you're looking down at First Avenue, and I saw it looked like a river of rain in the air, I guess is a good way to describe it, because just these sheets of rain going down the street towards Tropicana Field over there, and you see the lights flashing. Again, power surges. Our hotel, as far as I can tell, still, yes, does have power here. But it is a intense situation here, as just the strongest winds that we've seen from Hurricane Milton tear through downtown St. Pete, and we're again on the north side of the eye of this hurricane and feeling every bit of it right now, guys.
Eric, a question for you. So, I mean, we reported 84 mile an hour gusts. Actually, it was a 92. I'm not seeing any damage. I'm seeing a lot of wind and rain, but I'm not seeing any damage. Are they, I mean, is it okay so far?
Yeah, again, just other than a few minor, trees down, I have not seen anything catastrophic. Our biggest worry going into the storm was the debris left over from the last hurricane, that it would be airborne everywhere, and thankfully we haven't seen any of that go by. But yeah, I haven't seen any major damage. Now, that being said, we're also not by the coast. We're taking shelter, as we should be, by this hotel in a strong, secure building. So hopefully we won't see too much when we venture out once this storm passes. But just looking around, I mean, other than these sheets of rain hitting us in the face, everything is relatively okay, at least for the moment.
Yeah. All right, Eric. Thank you. Eric Waxler live in St. Pete. Greg, we're going to take a look at our traffic cam outside our studios. This is, there you see it kind of blowing in the wind. You were looking at it. I was looking at it. What would you guesstimate those winds are outside our studios?
I don't. Probably in that 60 plus mile per hour range, right?
I was thinking 65 to 70 maybe.
Yeah, that's what it seems like. They're consistent. And then you just get periodic, really strong bursts.
Now, I see a map that you have over there with some additional rainfall totals.
I had to go into our computer and literally find whole new colors to put on the map because the normal colors that we use just don't work with this kind of rainfall. So it kind of shows you better in a little bit more detail as far as where the heaviest rain has fallen. And it's basically from about the runways at MacDill down to the south and west over into southern Pinellas County, where we are estimating, now these are radar estimates, 14 inches of rain today in St. Pete between downtown and the beaches. That Seminole area, 12 inches up towards, it looks like maybe Dunedin, over towards the north part of Clearwater, 10 inches near Eastlake. You go up towards Carrollwood, Northdale, 11 inches estimated by radar. Out towards Terra Verde, 16 inches. That's already where the Weather Service or the Hurricane Center had us as the top rainfall range. So we're going to be exceeding that. I think some places here may pick up 20 inches easily. And now this heavy rain band is spreading up. The heavy rain is spreading up to the east and north, following the center of Milton as it continues to move east-northeast towards Zephyr Hills, Thenoto-Sassa, Kathleen, Gibsonia. And I think it's these areas here that are probably even a little bit more susceptible to flooding. As the monitor goes out here as we experience power fluctuations around the station. The sounds in here, I wish you guys could hear this. Maybe you can't over my mic. There's a creaking over my head right now. Everyone's just looking to see if something's gonna fall on my head as I'm talking about this. The building it's taking a force. You know, that wind is coming in from the north and east. It's hitting the building. The building is flexing and moving, and we definitely see that. We've been seeing that now for a while, and you may be experiencing that at home as well, especially doors and windows. You hear that creaking, that sound. And if you've lost power, I know it probably makes you a little bit anxious. And it's totally fine. You know, there is a little bit of bend, a little movement built into our buildings, right? They're not solid. We imagine them as built completely solid, but there is a little bit of flex, and they're going to be just fine. These types of winds are not going to destroy your home. And I think it's important to say that, okay? You are safe inside of your home. We've got building codes here, and especially when you look at the areas I-75 West, a lot of you around the Bay, 155, that's what your house is built for. So winds of 60, 70, even they gust to 100 miles per hour, which is the highest we've seen so far. Your home is going to be just fine. Yes, it's a little, it definitely gives you anxiety. It's a little nerving to hear all that sound, and especially with your power out, you're suddenly a lot more sensitive to the sound of the outside because there's nothing making noise inside the house. But it is going to be okay. Your house will hold together. The building is going to be just fine wherever you're taking shelter. And we've seen these strong winds, not just here in Tampa, but really north. I saw a wind gust recently. The strongest I've seen, this is in Polk County. Folks asking in Polk County, I saw a report out of Winter Haven. I'm probably going to miss this report here because there's been so many coming in. I don't want to get it wrong. Winter Haven, gusting to 79 miles per hour. So hurricane force winds in north central Polk County. That's ahead of Milton. You might get the stronger backside. Now, by the time Milton passes Winter Haven, it'll be even weaker. So this may be the top wind speed, thinking about it here, as it heads down I-4, just south of I-4. But these are pretty strong winds. Multiple wind gusts into the 70s in Hernando County. I'm sure Pasco County. Haven't gotten a lot of reports out of Pasco County in terms of specific wind reports, but I am sure that there are folks that have been gusting 70 to 75 miles an hour, maybe even 75 to 80. Zephyr Hills, Wesley Chapel, the Land O'Lakes, Lutz area, back over towards Odessa, and maybe even the western parts of the county toward Newport Richey. I've got another reporter to go to in Ybor City. Let's go out to Ybor City, see what's going on there. What's going on?
So those winds that you were mentioning, you can probably hear and see right now. They've intensified even more. You can see this whipping rain at this intersection behind me. This is the type of wind and rain that we've been experiencing here in Ybor City for the last several hours. Those lights just flickered then. It's kind of been doing that for the last few hours as well. We've had a few transformers blow in this area also, and so we've had a couple power outages, but the power has turned back on. I want to take you inside for just a moment to show you how prepared this hotel is. So obviously we just talked about those transformers blowing when this happens. Obviously there's a chance that we could lose power from this storm. And inside this stairwell, I'm gonna have my photographer walk in so you can see there are flashlights in every corner of this stairwell. We've been taking the stairs because the power and electricity has kind of been iffy over the last few hours, so we didn't want to get stuck in the elevator, didn't want to risk that. So the hotel is prepared. There are a lot of people actually from the Tampa area that are staying here. A lot of people say that they came, they were living on the coast from the shore, and they ended up coming inland because this hurricane was coming. And so again, it's here. We're seeing it. The wind again whipping consistently. We do still have power here in Ybor City right now. It's been pretty consistent. Again, we've seen a little bit of outages here and there, some transformers blowing, but it's really been pretty consistent. I do want to show you, we talked a little bit about this debris that we're seeing and some of these damaging winds. I don't know if you can see this in the street, but there are some tree branches down. God, this wind is just insane here. Tree branches down, we've seen some signs wiggling back and forth, but that's really all we've seen. We haven't seen sustainable damage, anything like that. All of these windows along these shops here in Ybor City still intact. A lot of businesses did board up their windows and doors ahead of the storm, even putting sandbags in front of them to have that extra reinforcement. Again, these winds are whipping at extreme speeds right now. We can see it, we can feel it when you're inside. I heard another reporter talking just a few minutes ago about that whistling sound. We were inside the hotel a few minutes ago and you could hear exactly that. So we're seeing that on the ground here. I'll give you one last look before we toss it back to you. These whipping winds, this rain really carrying through this part of town right now.
Jenna, thank you. Amazing that Ybor still has power, actually, with all that wind. Most of the neighborhoods here around Tampa are starting to lose power quickly. This is a live look outside. This is the FDOT camera at Dale Mabry. Look at the force of this wind. While Jenna there was reporting from Ybor, it literally sounded like the Amtrak rolled by the station. We're not near the railroad tracks. It was very, very loud. You could feel the building vibrate. And those winds forcing their way down Dale Mabry, really getting channeled down the road. You see that camera pointed toward the north. The wind on the backside of Milton is out of the northeast and eventually northwest. So we're blowing the bay out, the bay water out into the Gulf of Mexico, and it's all due to these very strong winds. The majority of what we're going to see due to these winds is going to be tree damage. When you look at what the wind has done overall, that's going to be the biggest concern, is tree damage. You're going to hear it's going to be a lot of cleaning up, picking up, cutting things up. Hopefully a lot of these trees and tree branches obviously miss homes, cars, and property. But in some cases they won't. You're going to see some structural damage from things that fell or were blown over because of the wind. The wind itself probably okay for most homes. These are not that strong wind gusts. Consistently 60, 65, we're getting gusts into the 70s, some near the center of the storm into the 80s, but those should be okay for most places except mobile and manufactured homes. Those were the ones that a lot of the officials asked folks to leave if they're in, even outside of flood zones, because those are not designed to really deal with a wind like this. And the consistency of the wind, I mean, that's really been, I think, one of the things that's going to be a hallmark of this storm is that, remember, the extreme wind warning for the Tampa area was issued 4 hours ago. Now, that's since expired, but it doesn't sound any quieter outside of our building since then. The wind has consistently kept up and it just keeps moving through. Let me show you the latest radar here. So there's the storm. Now, the center of that storm of Milton, as I'm going to animate the radar here, probably starting to shift into southern portions of Polk County. So it's probably in this general area here. I would say if the eye is still intact or some sort of low pressure center. So it's generally south of Dover. It's now past 301, should pass just south of Mulberry and then head down 98. So Bartow, Fort Meade, you're probably getting some really nasty winds right now. And then looking down the line, Frostproof, Lake Wales, Winter Haven, Auburndale, Lakeland, I know you're in it already. really, really strong winds there. Speaking of Polk County and Lakeland, we've got Mary out there this evening over in Lakeland. All right, Mary, tell me what's going on. You're kind of entering the stronger part of the storm now. Have you seen conditions change over the last couple of hours?
Oh gosh, yes. It's been terrible the last couple hours, and you can tell just by looking over my shoulder here, this is really the only portion of light that we can show you here, but you can see that rain is just coming down sideways, and you can tell how much the wind is blowing the trees right there, right in your direction. And then periodically we'll get pretty big gusts of wind that take you by surprise because they come in these little bursts. Surprisingly though, we have power still here right now. It's flickered on and off for several hours, but we still have power. We did lose internet, but we do have power at this point. And you can tell from these other houses here, they've got lights. And mostly it's pretty quiet out here. We did see, unfortunately, one car on the road, which we don't want to see because this is just torrential rain. These gusts of wind are mighty strong right now, and we only expect it to get worse, as the night goes on.
Mary, have you heard of any reports of any kind of damage in your area? I don't know if you had a chance to contact anyone, if you reached out to anyone, or been able to even hear of anything or see anything in your area in terms of damage.
No, not at this point. I know Polk County officials earlier in the evening, and this is before it looked like this outside, they had said they had some reports of some localized water in the road, and they had down power lines and some power outages in certain areas. That was about 5 o'clock in the evening, so that was a long time ago when they had mentioned all that. So you can imagine at this point we're probably seeing more power outages throughout Polk County, even so here in Lakeland. And we did check the street just on the other side of the place that we're in right now to see if there was any water on the road there. It looked clear at that point, but right now you can feel the wind when it blows the house too. I mean, it's pretty strong. We expect it to be like that for a little while more.
Last question, Mary. Are people listening to officials? Are they staying in? Are you seeing people out and about, or are they really paying attention to this storm and staying in while this worst part moves by?
For the most part, we are seeing people stay in. Maybe 2 minutes ago, right prior to us coming on live, we did see a car go around the corner. We were like, what is that light? Was there a transformer going? No, it was headlights coming down the road because the street just on the other side of this house is pretty dark right now. Earlier in the night, we did see another car go by, but other than that, it has been really quiet here. And Polk County officials had said earlier that they had about 5,500 people who had gone to shelters and heeded the warnings. If they didn't want to shelter in place at home, they were at all the county shelters. So they had quite a bit of people who decided to shelter at one of the public shelters and get away from this storm at their own home if they didn't feel safe there. So that is something that we love to hear.
Mary O'Connell in Lakeland this evening. Mary, stay safe. The worst is, I think, to come. I think Mary's actually going to see stronger winds and heavier rain as the center of Milton passes down to the south of Lakeland, south of Mulberry. So that's going to be an interesting place to check in with later tonight as we continue to track Milton across the state, which, by the way, is a Category 2 hurricane now. It's a top-end Category 2. Remember, Category 3 starts at 111. This thing is at 110 right now, and there's going to be a slow weakening phase, but it is forecast to remain a hurricane until it gets to the East Coast, and then it'll transition to a extratropical system out over the waters of the Atlantic. We do have Forrest Saunders down in Northport, southern Sarasota County. The last time we checked with him, he was getting some of the strongest winds he's seen with this storm. Forrest, tell me what's going on down there now, and are you getting rain with this, or is this mainly just a lot of wind?
It's a lot of wind. I mean, it feels like someone is downfield spitting on me right now. That's kind of what the sensation is. Not that I've been spit on a lot, but I'm just telling you, that's sort of what the atmosphere is like, right? I think the thing that is most annoying is I keep getting pelted with acorns from the nearby trees. I mean, these are my people, and they're throwing stuff at me. Things have been getting maybe a little calmer here and there. The gusts aren't quite as bad as they've been. The sustained winds are having these moments of lulls, right? So it's just sort of these big, strong gusts every once in a while that almost knock you off your feet. So we are maybe starting to see a mellowing of Milton as he moves further towards the central part of the state. And obviously you mentioned the weakening as well. Still nobody out in town. Northport is basically a ghost town right now. It's also in the dark. A couple hours ago we lost power, and really kudos to the infrastructure here because it held out for a long time. We saw some flickering. We did hear a few transformers blow. Eventually, yes, the power did give way, and now we are sitting in the dark. And the big question is, how long will we be sitting in the dark? I know that the state is very focused on restoring power as quickly as possible, but unfortunately, it might be a little bit. There are, I think, somewhere in the neighborhood of 50 to 60,000, somewhere in between those numbers of linemen that have been staged all across the state, ready to be surged to the areas that need power restoration the most as soon as the storm clears. But of course, we still have a little bit of time for that. As you mentioned, again, a Category 2 hurricane is nothing to mess around with, which is one of the reasons why you are still not seeing anybody out on the roads. As far as damage, I have not seen much in Northport, in the immediate area at least. When you get further towards the coast, in those coastal areas where we had some of the storm surge, we have seen some of those cameras that have been set up. There is a good deal of water further towards the water. And then, of course, Northport has a bay, a river, and so some of that water might have pushed up and flooded some of the low-lying areas. Sarasota County does have an evacuation order in place, but we are just on the outside of that and staying as safe as possible. That is the latest out here in Northport. I'll send it back to you.
Forrest Saunders down in Northport this evening. Forrest, thank you so much. Slowly pulling away from him, so they'll look at southern Sarasota County where Forrest is here off 75. They're still on the backside of it, but the center of Milton is starting to gain distance. Now, I do think he's going to get more rain, so folks down in Northport, some of this rain is going to ramp back around the backside of Milton, so there's going to be a little bit more rain with this wind. Heading up the coast, Manatee County. Now, this is a place that really got hammered as Milton was coming ashore down towards Siesta Key. Paul Lagrone is down there in an Airbnb checking things out. Last time we were there, Paul, we saw some debris flying by. You've obviously lost power. What's the latest there in Bradenton?
Yeah, power's been out pretty much all night. And yeah, we're starting to see the debris line up the streets. These tree limbs have been blowing from down the street, and I'll tell you, Greg, every now and then you get a reminder this wind is not going away. It's been hanging around. It'll lull, and then all of a sudden you'll just get a huge burst.
May have lost him.
Oh, I think we lost Paul's shot. Now, that's going to be an issue, right? I mean, power's going out, internet's going out, cell service is going out. So we're going to be probably seeing this. Interestingly enough, backside of the storm, we keep saying this, it's the stronger side. Dennis, St. Pete just gusted to 101.
Yeah, that's right where Eric is, or pretty close to him, and earlier it was 84. So this is unfortunately, I think, going to be one of those nights where everybody's just kind of hanging in there and waiting to see what it's going to look like later on tomorrow when we actually have a chance to look at everything. Now, there is a look at the flash flood warning, and that's in effect, folks, until 4 a.m. You know, but Greg and Jason, we were talking about this. Everything about this storm is just kind of peculiar. You have an area that's south of the eye that has nothing. It's got wind, but it has absolutely very little rain at all. But yet on the backside of the storm, which is typically not the strongest, is where the strongest winds have been. And what's happening, and this is what we were talking about the last several days, you've got a storm that was a tropical system, and it is quickly transitioning into a non-tropical, extratropical system. And I was talking to Jason about this. There's a phenomenon known as a sting jet. And when you have an area like this, we just took another hit. When you have an area like this, it goes from tropical to non-tropical, you have a rush of air that comes in. And I have a feeling that's one of the reasons why we are looking at the winds that we are seeing. So we've got, it's twofold. Look, if you live in Pasco County, you have seen rain. We're getting pictures and video of roads with literally rivers in them. And when we look at pictures in Hillsborough and Pinellas, it's the same thing. Northwestern Polk also in it. And that is until 4 o'clock in the morning. And you always hate to see this. This is issued by the Weather Service. This is not us trying to make anything look bigger than it is. I think that would be difficult to do anyway. But the Weather Service, they issue what they consider the threat. And when that threat comes up as catastrophic, that means you're looking at rainfall of a rate about as high as it possibly can be. And inevitably, there is going to be some flooding. So that's what we've seen. And when you have rainfall totals well over a foot and it is still coming down, there's simply nowhere for this to go. Now, we are fortunate. I know it's hard to believe, but we are fortunate that we have had an offshore flow in these places. We are not dealing with surge right now. Matter of fact, we're looking at a reverse surge and the water's coming out of the bay. Not only did we not have this massive surge that potentially would have happened if the storm had been closer to us, it made landfall Siesta Key way to the south, but we're looking at the opposite. The water's actually dropping. Now, eventually, when that low pulls around, we will see a return flow. But I know a lot of folks have been messaging me saying, oh, okay, well, yeah, the water's going out of the bay, but it's going to rush back in really fast. And no, that's not what's going to happen. Not to mention the storm is going to be a lot weaker at that point as it pulls away. Yes, it does have the reach, and the water's going to come back in. And might we have some surge? Sure, we might have some surge. But we are not going to get anything significant, even close. So it turns out that this storm, in spite of the surge appearing to be the biggest threat, ends up being the least threat. The biggest threat is the water, the heavy rain, and the wind. And that wind continues as the storm pulls away. A couple of hours more, and I think you start seeing some dramatic improvements from the coast and inland. Current wind gusts right now, latest wind gust showing there at St. Pete, 90 miles an hour, 82 miles an hour. Guys, have we had sustained hurricane winds? I'm sure we probably have.
Yeah, I'll have to take a peek at it.
But I have not seen the report of it yet.
Tampa just gusted to 87, by the way.
So there you go. Tampa's up to 87 now. And Bartow, 79. So we are now pretty much seeing the peak winds across most of the area. And while the surge threat is, and these numbers, we might as well just take this thing out because it's just not going to verify. Wow, down to 105 now.
The 11 p.m. just came out.
Okay, so there you go. So we are now looking at still a Category 2 hurricane, but weakening quickly as the pressure continues to rise, and that's to be expected. And not to mention it doesn't matter because this is really not a tropical system anymore. This is almost like a nor'easter. Literally, this is like a gale up in the Northeast, that you get the winds expanding outward. And that makes a lot of sense with what's happening here. Think about this, guys. So when you have a hurricane, you got the bulk of the wind right around that eye wall, right around the center, which is what we had earlier today when this was still a tropical system. But that 35, 40 knot shear that we've been talking about for days went right in like it was supposed to, did what it was supposed to, and has transformed this system from a hurricane to really a non-tropical system like a nor'easter, like a gale, where the winds are spread out. So instead of all the wind around the center, we're getting these wind reports across the entire area that are hurricane force. So in a sense, it's worse than it would be just if it was around a little spot, because we have transitioned into, matter of fact, the Hurricane Center is even saying this is the updated track as well. Yeah, so this is the new track, which, it's kind of a moot point, but still has it as a Cat 2, and by tomorrow morning has it as a Cat 1. This will bring hurricane force winds to Orlando. This will bring hurricane force winds to all of Polk County, but the threat of the extreme wind warning is over. So now what we have is what you get. There will not be anything worse coming our way in terms of intensity. Folks inland who haven't seen as much yet, you're still going to get it. But at least and this is fair to say, we have hit the peak of the impact of this storm in terms of wind. Now, rain, it's still coming down, and those flooding issues are still going to be a thing. So the potential wind gusts overnight, still 80 miles an hour in Lakeland, but as we go through the overnight, 2:30 a.m., the winds really start to come down along the coast, and for that matter, even across Hillsborough and Pasco County. And then by tomorrow morning, things improve dramatically. So this is the update. Winds of 105, still hurricane force winds in the red color. And then this orange color is winds of about 58 to 74, I believe it is. So pretty much the entire area is under that. Jason, what you got?
Hey, real quick, just want to let you know the emergency managers out of Pinellas County are letting us know that there's widespread flooding in St. Petersburg and neighborhood areas. They are starting water rescues in places where it's safe to go out, but we're still getting gusts over 100 miles per hour. So I'm not sure if that's too many areas, but people are needing to be rescued in St. Pete now because of the flooding.
See, and this is what we said and what we always hope people won't do. When people don't evacuate, this is what happens. I mean, and I get it. There are times where a storm might come up quick or a track might be in another location. I understand that. And you know what? There are sometimes situations where people just can't get to where they want to go, especially after Helene. I took so many messages from people who said, Dennis, I want to evacuate, but I don't have a car anymore. I mean, yes, there were shuttles. Yes, there's probably a way, but I understand. And everybody has their own situation. But this is what happens, and we knew it would. People who did not heed the evacuation certainly aren't surprised that we're getting a flooding situation. Although interesting, Jason, because this flooding situation is not from surge. It's from rainwater. So that's reminiscent of Debbie. Totally different situation. But remember, Debbie, when all the horrific flooding that went on in Manatee and Sarasota County had nothing to do with surge. So let's go to Eric Waxler right now, and he is in St. Pete. And last I checked, we had 85-mile-an-hour wind gusts, and now they're even higher. Eric?
Yeah, Dennis, we have some unbelievable, something unbelievable to show you. This is Tropicana Field. The roof, a big portion of it, has ripped off. We're looking inside Tropicana Field. We are seeing extreme damage to there was a report we saw online earlier of a fire, and we were waiting to confirm that, and now we just made it up to the 5th floor of the hotel we are in, and it's hard to believe what we're looking at.
Eric, all those
and remember,
linemen,
inside Tropicana Field,
all those linemen are
there were
in the
thousands
trop.
of cots. It is a staging area for the National Guard and
Eric, can you hear me?
the linemen who are tasked with putting the power back on once this storm is over. So the cots are inside. That's where we saw the picture of them. But now we're looking at one of the iconic landmarks in the Tampa, St. Petersburg area with the roof partially destroyed. This is the power of Hurricane Milton as it makes its way through downtown St. Petersburg. Unbelievable. Guys, you seeing these pictures?
Eric, we are. And, the first thing we thought of, I will tell you, we had a woman, Diane, who works in the newsroom, came back and talked to me a couple hours ago and said just that. Said, Dennis, is it a possibility? We have all those linemen, all those people in the trop, in their cots, and what if it collapses? We literally just had this conversation. And so are you seeing fire rescue? Are you seeing, oh, he can't hear. Okay. All right. Well, obviously we're immediately going to check in with fire rescue. Okay, Eric, you're back. So Eric, are you seeing fire rescue?
Yeah. I don't see, let me see if I can get another vantage point to see if there are any emergency vehicles around. I don't see the flashing lights around Tropicana Field at all at this point. I'm blocked by trees. So let's see, we're looking at the northwest corner of Tropicana Field, basically. And obviously we've felt some major gusts, but looking at that, what we're seeing now, it's just hard to believe after all the storms and everything that have come through this area. Obviously, this is the one that has taken down part of the roof.
I guess our initial thought is this a superficial thing? Is this, the fabric, if you will, as opposed to the actual structure?
Right. Yeah, I still see the beams, for sure. I see the beams still in place. It is the fabric, which obviously, can be replaced.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not the whole thing. You wonder, the more the wind gets inside, if we'll see other parts of it blow off. I'm looking into Tropicana Field now and seeing other parts of it just blowing in the wind and waves to the other parts of the fabric. So you wonder just how much more the rest of this roof can take. But from everything I can tell, I still see the beams in place.
But at this point, you're not seeing any fire rescues. So, I mean, you have to wonder if maybe they can't get there, or...
Well, I mean, there's no, I can see the streets below. I don't see any kind of flooding or anything, but I haven't heard a siren. I haven't heard any sign of emergency vehicles, and I do not see any flashing lights around Tropicana Field right now.
Yeah, I mean, we've heard that they've suspended all operations, but you wonder if there might be exceptions to that. And if there was ever an exception to it, it would clearly be this. So, again, Eric Waxler, if you're just tuning in, our reporter Eric Waxler is live in St. Pete, where obviously what has just happened is the fabric covering Tropicana Field has been shredded. He's not seeing any structural damage from your vantage point. Do you think you are close enough that you'd be able to actually see that?
Yeah, I have a good look at the base of the stadium, and I do not see any kind of structural damage as we feel these gusts coming. It is just the fabric. And, as far as, trying to speculate about injuries or anything like that, I mean, if there were, in fact, people that were staying inside Tropicana Field, it was not a shelter or an evacuation point. It was solely meant for first responders. In fact, we were out there yesterday. There are hundreds of ambulances that were outside Tropicana Field from all over the country that were staging to help our community. And as far as I know, that's what those cots were set up for, the first responders and the people that are here to help once the storm is over, for them to stay in there. And obviously, if they realized the roof was coming off, they could go into the concourse area, the bowels of the stadium, that would be safe and protected from that, because what you're seeing is just the fabric roof. But I would say a good quarter, more than a quarter of the roof is gone in shreds. I mean, just like paper.
I mean, it does kind of make sense that if it is the fabric covering, it could very easily have been a superficial issue as opposed to the structure itself. You certainly hope that's the case. And again, the fact, Eric saying he's not seeing any fire rescue, we've heard obviously they're suspended the fire rescue, but you have to wonder if there was something really significant going on like this, which would be if this was a situation where you're looking at the structures or beams falling, I mean, that's a massive trauma event, and you would think there would be a way to get fire rescue there regardless. I find it impossible to believe that they would not make an exception for something like this. So we're hoping that it is just the fabric covering and that's it. But obviously we have no confirmation of that whatsoever. And I think at this point, it's going to be impossible for us to get confirmation, right, Eric, until fire rescue gets there or until we can hear something from the city.
Yeah, just before I came up to this roof vantage, because I had seen an online rumor about a fire at Tropicana Field, I checked with the public information officer for the city of St. Petersburg just to see, if there was anything to it. And she was going to check with fire rescue. And while that is happening, I haven't checked her reply since we came up here. But obviously, we don't know if it did in fact start with a fire or if this is in fact just wind damage and maybe somebody mistook what they saw at first. For some sort of fire. But all it takes is obviously a little rip to open up on that fabric dome for the wind to get in and then start ripping it and doing the significant damage that we're looking at right now. But I don't. If Jason can zoom in on those beams, you can see the steel beams that make up the actual dome that hold everything in place. I mean, I'm looking at each of them all along there, and I'm seeing them all still in place. So I have not seen any kind of collapse. I don't see any, cracks in the foundation of the stadium. It's just that fabric part of the dome that is shredded.
That really is what it looks like. I mean, you still see the lights. You can even see the lights. Right.
Yeah, you can see the purple lights inside. I mean, that's a big part of Rays games before or during different parts of the game and the celebration at the end of the game when they turn on the lights and kind of light the dome up, and we're seeing the purple lights are still illuminated inside there. So it must be quite a sight. I cannot imagine what it would be like to be inside that stadium right now for those who were there, and we don't know if they had any kind of sign that this was starting to happen, and we're able to take shelter inside the concourse of the stadium, inside the locker room. And obviously, there are plenty of safe places that would be secure from the elements deeper within the stadium than just being out there on the field. But
I mean, Eric, a couple of questions.
One, this is quite a sight.
Eric, did you see it happen, or how did you notice that? Did you just look over and be like, "What?" I mean, is it something that you actually witnessed?
Well, no, so this. Yeah, so the side that we've been reporting on from the hotel that we're at on Central, we've been on the other side because it's a more sheltered side. This patio is on the 5th floor, facing downtown, facing Tropicana Field, and it doesn't have a covering. So we've been reporting from the kind of safer end of this building. But again, when we heard from someone who's staying on the 7th floor, as we were making our way up, that the roof was off Tropicana Field. Of course, we continued to come up here, and the amazing operations director from this hotel helped us get up here to the 5th floor, because this is obviously closed to the people that are staying here right now for obvious reasons. So, yeah, we did not see it happen. We heard that there might have been some trouble. Then we made our way up here, and this is what we saw. And yeah, when I opened the door to get to this balcony and saw that, I was blown away.
Well, the one thing, yeah, I was thinking the same thing. The one thing we noticed, the lights are still on. Yeah. There's still power in there.
Yeah.
So it makes me think that if there was some kind of a threat or whatever, maybe they would turn the lights off. I don't know. I mean, it does seem odd that the lights are still on with the roof ripped off.
Yeah, and while we're standing, I'm going to see if I have gotten any kind of reply from the public information officer with the city of St. Petersburg. No, nothing yet.
And still no fire rescue.
I'm going to make my. Yeah, I usually even if there was any kind of fire rescue at the base of the building, we would see the flashing lights off in the distance. Mm-hmm. We would, maybe hear them, but I don't see any sign of any fire rescue. And we are looking at basically the northwest side of the stadium, that corner. And I mean, this stadium has stood here for decades, so it is just. And now, as the wind picks up, well, you can really see the fabric.
I'm trying to figure out how that happened. If one piece goes, does it all go, or, is it a chain reaction kind of thing?
Yeah. And if you look now on the, sorry, we're getting some good guests here. If you look on the east side, it might be hard to see because it's dark over there. I'm seeing what looks like another part of the roof flapping. So I don't know if more of it is coming undone. But we did just hear from St. Pete Fire Rescue that there are no injuries. Obviously, that is number one in the concerns, is all the people. I mean, there are thousands of people staging in Tropicana Field. We don't know where they are in the stadium right now, but again, I was out there yesterday. There's a parking lot with thousands of ambulances, maybe hundreds of ambulances from across the country staging here. They come here so that they're ready to help our community. The National Guard is there, other first responders. And we showed the picture on the air, and I don't know if we can call it up at some point, but there were thousands of cots on the field for everyone to have a place to rest in between all the work that they're going to be doing. So that was the setup there. That is the setup there.
Well, again, you just said the most important thing. The most important thing you just said is fire rescue is saying everyone is safe, so there were no injuries, and that's
yes.
That nothing is more important. I mean, it's as we look on a much smaller scale, I'm sure there's a lot of people tomorrow that are going to be seeing issues with their roofs as well locally, as we continue to see winds 80, 90 to 100 miles an hour. So a very frightening situation going on at the Trop. But at this point, if you're just tuning in, You see it. Eric Waxler was out there in St. Pete. Eric, you guys had winds of about 90 or 100 miles an hour, and clearly it was just too much for the structure.
Yeah, and we were on the other side of the building, on the west side of this. We're at the True by Hilton Hotel, just to give them again some props for taking care of us and getting us up to this vantage point. We were feeling those winds whipping down at street level, and we felt every bit of the gusts that you're talking about, getting up near 100 miles an hour. And obviously, all it takes, from that kind of roof, with that fabric roof, one tear, and then the wind gets inside, and that's I think when this kind of damage can happen. We've seen domes collapse in different ways in other parts of the country. Was it the Metrodome where a pile of snow was too heavy and it collapsed into the stadium? I think that happened several years ago.
Yeah, it was the Vikings. It was the Vikings, or it was either Minnesota. It was either the University of Minnesota or the Vikings. I can't remember which, but yeah. And I think it's important for folks to know the roof did not collapse. This is not a collapse. This is just the fabric covering the trop is obviously shredded. And Eric, in looking at this with a good vantage point, says, as far as we can tell, that it doesn't look like the structure has been compromised, and most importantly, no injuries, according to Fire and Rescue.
And something that just came to mind, there are obviously big parts of the fabric that are gone. They're not there anymore. Huge pieces of that fabric. So the question is, did they go inside, or did they just fly off somewhere in downtown St. Pete? Because while there are still shreds holding onto those beams, there are big, gigantic parts of that dome, of that fabric roof, that are just gone. So obviously we can't tell if they've fallen inside, but the way these winds are whipping, it wouldn't surprise me if they took off like a sail and, who knows, ended up in somebody's front lawn for all we know.
Yeah, well, with an offshore flow, it would have gone toward the west. So whatever ripped apart would have gone out toward the Gulf, out in that general vicinity. What time did all this come down? What was the time frame from when you first heard something about it?
I would say about an hour ago is when we first heard something online. I saw somebody tweeting about a possible fire at Tropicana Field, and then I checked with the city to find out if there was any validity to that, and then basically, as soon as we came up here, we were on the air with you within minutes. So however long we've been talking to you is how long now. How long before that this happened, we don't know.
Okay. All right, Eric. Well, thanks again. Let us know if you hear anything, if you get any updates from the city or fire rescue. We will check back with you. And again, Eric Waxler, live in St. Pete, where the covering of the roof of Tropicana Field shredded and much of it gone due to 100-mile-an-hour winds. And let's go over to Greg, because, Greg, we've been looking at this wind for a few hours, and I know a lot of folks are saying, okay, when's it going to end?
Just thinking about that Tropicana Field situation, 275 is behind the stadium. So if you're getting an east to west wind, that material could be on 275. If not, it's in the Grand Central District, just on the other side of the interstate. 101-mile-an-hour wind gust. It's interesting. I got a report from someone, and this is not confirmed, that there may have also been a crane that fell from the site of the construction site of the 400, the tallest tower there in downtown St. Pete. And this is all correlated with these strong winds. Again, Whitted Field gusting to the airport there in downtown St. Pete. 101 miles per hour. That's the second highest gust we've seen reported, other than Sarasota, which was at the point of landfall when they gusted in the backside of the eye wall to 102. So this is what we talked about the last couple of days. You heard me talking about a Good Morning Tampa Bay. It's going to be that northwest eye wall that is going to surprise. And boy, has it ever. This has really been an incredibly intense storm. And you really got to feel for the folks in St. Pete. I know we're focusing a lot on Pinellas County, but so we're seeing the wind damage now in Pinellas County. We're getting reports of water rescues from the emergency management there because of the catastrophic flash flooding that is ongoing. Of course, it's hard to get reports and images because no one's out there. It is too dangerous to be out there. But the Weather Service, with this flash flood warning, is indicating that the threat here is at the highest level possible for a flash flood. That's how much rainfall has fallen. Radar estimates, and we can pull these up because these will update live as the radar starts adding up the rain. So you see there in Pinellas County in St. Pete, radar estimating 14 inches of rain. To put that in perspective, in our rainy season, in our rainiest months, June, July, and August, we see about 6 to 7 inches each of those months. So we got 2 months of rain in our rainy season in 12 hours. That is just, even if the bay gets pulled away and the drainage, that's just too much. Everything gets overwhelmed, and now we're having issues with flash flooding. And this is only going to persist because as you look at the radar here, I can pull up Milton's radar. Let's go back to that right there. And you can see that this storm is still around. It is not moving very quickly, and the rain continues to fall. Now, the rain in Pinellas County is starting to lighten up. So we've gone from a really heavy rain over towards some light to moderate rain. It's still heavy over towards Hillsborough. It's still heavy in Pasco, Hernando County, ICU Ridge Manor, Lacucci over towards Dade City. Heaviest rain in the area by far, Citrus Ridge to Polk City, that northern and north central parts of Polk County. This is going to be Winter Haven over toward Auburndale. If there is still, that's not an eye anymore, there's a low pressure center. It is located in southwestern portions of Polk County. So it's about to come up here on the Fort Meade area, and I believe that's US 98, which goes into 17. So that's 17 and 98 here share the same road. The 98 shoots off to the east. So it's coming up on 17 and 98 in Polk County, and all the heaviest weather is to the north. Look at this, we're getting lightning. This late in the game, this is supposed to be a weakening system, getting lightning just north of the eye. So that northern eye wall over Lakeland right now is still really dynamic. There's a lot of wind in here, a lot of heavy rain, these secondary, and now some of these main roadways. You know, usually we tell you secondary neighborhood roads, those are the ones that flood first. You've got to be careful even on the main roads here. On 98, on 559, over towards 301, the Polk Parkway, 92, 542, all of these roads here in and around Lakeland could have water on them. You shouldn't be out there, but if you are out there for some reason, got an emergency, do not drive over any roadway that is flooded. These waters are going to rise quickly. It's going to be hard to tell how much water is out there and how deep that is, and whether there is a surface for you to drive over underneath all that water surface. You've got to be really, really careful. I believe we have someone else that is live. Chad Mills is down in Sarasota. He has been seeing debris. Chad, earlier you showed us some shingles that you came across. What have you got now?
Oh, Greg, we have more shingles, found even more around this house, you know, not at the level of the tarp coming off Tropicana Field, but this is what homeowners here, at least in the general vicinity where I am, are probably going to be dealing with tomorrow as the sun comes up and all of this passes. Yeah, there are trees down in the area, shingles down in the area as well. It seems like everything where I am anyway fared pretty well. And then the eye passed over and it was calm. But then on that backside is when the wind really just felt more vicious here, you know, blowing from the west and then the north. It is dying down right now. You get a strong gust every now and then, a little bit of one right now. But it seems that backside was just really vicious, and that's when I started seeing, you know, kind of trash cans blowing down the street, other debris as well, and then that's when we started noticing more shingles. And, you know, our vantage is very limited right now. It is pitch black behind me. We lost power hours ago at this point. So you can only imagine that when the sun comes up and we start walking around this general area, start surveying other parts of Sarasota as well, we're going to see more damage like that. A lot of trees down as well, one can only imagine, because when we were leaving downtown, before the eye approached and made landfall, we were already seeing sizable trees down, one near downtown, one on Honore Avenue, which is not too far from where we are, another on Fruitville Road as well. So potentially a good amount of cleanup here in Sarasota as we finally start to see the effects of Milton kind of level off in terms of wind and rain. The big question mark is, and we are about 5 miles from the coast here, how bad will that surge be as it comes into Sarasota County? Greg.
Chad Mills down in Sarasota. Chad, thank you so much. You saw the debris there, the wind. Things will be improving there in Sarasota for sure. I'm going to send it back into our other studio where we've got some more news for you.
Hey, Greg, yes, it's Nadine and windy now. We have moved into our other studio because our lights were shaking a little bit earlier.
A little bit. That just proves, the strength of the storm, even right across from Raymond James Stadium, which is where we are on Himes Avenue. So the storm continues to affect even us here in the studio.
It proves that everything that you're feeling at home, the nerves that you are feeling, we are also feeling and going through this with you. And we can't say it enough. We thank you for trusting us. We do have a couple of updates to get to. I want to start with that tip that you got in about TGH.
Yeah, so I got a tip that there might have been a couple floors flooded inside the hospital at Tampa General Hospital, and we did get a confirmation back from the hospital. Go ahead and read the statement.
So they just sent out a statement. Now, this is TGH and Davis Islands, famous from the aqua fence just from Helene 13 days ago. They say, like many businesses and homes in our region, Tampa General is experiencing some impacts as a result of Hurricane Milton. They're calling it minor leaks at the hospital's main campus on Davis Islands. The water detected is not expected given the severity of all the other weather that we're seeing in the region. We are actively working to respond and clear the areas impacted. The last line here, the leaks do not pose a threat to safety of patients or our team members. So we can confirm some kind of impacts at TGH on Davis Islands.
Right, and we also just wanted to update on some power outages because we know so many folks are losing power or they've lost power, and then if they haven't lost power, the winds and what have you is still quite a concerning thing. So far right now, TECO has over 274,000 folks still without power and 495,000 for Duke Energy, which as we know is a lot of Pinellas County and that area. I also wanted to look at FPL just for a moment, and I think Sarasota County I know had quite a few because as we know Sarasota and Manatee
hard.
Yes. But I will get those to you because it looks like my computer is not loading.
It's all good. What we do know is 50,000 linemen are on standby. TECO, I got an email saying that this was going to be their largest response ever. And I think I heard linemen as far as Canada are here to help. And we always love to see all the help coming from all of us. And we know that many of our help and our linemen are staying at Tropicana Field.
Which, as you saw, the roof was ripped off by the winds. We also want you to know that St. Petersburg has just shut off their water. So if you are having trouble, you're in St. Pete and the water's not turning on, well, that's why. And obviously it's because of the storm.
Yeah, that's citywide happening. So you guys just be ready for that, especially by midnight. All right. Want to head out to our crews out there?
Yes, we have Scripps News reporter Lillian Donahue. She is in Tampa on our ABC Action News parking garage across from Raymond James Stadium.
What are you seeing, Lillian?
Well, we're tucked back in this parking garage, and I have been completely pelted with wind and rain. I mean, it's been 2 hours now of this, but I want to show you back here. These lights out here have been flickering all evening, but what you're looking at is that completely horizontal rain right now, and this wind just has not let up. In fact, those gusts just keep coming stronger and stronger every single time. In fact, there is one happening right now. If we kind of go this way, you can see even on the lower end, all of those trees being pushed. I know that this area right here in between our parking garage and the main building has really become a wind tunnel for certain things. And I've been looking over here, I don't want to look over too much, but there's been a large branch on the bottom of our parking garage that I saw just a few minutes ago kind of fly this way. And actually, just as I was talking, there was another transformer, that kind of blue hue that we've been seeing. It kind of looks like lightning, but you can hear that electric noise as it's going on. That's really what's been happening around this whole area over the past 2 hours. It's been kind of, you'd see the wind, you'd see the gust, and right after that you'd see something like that blue hue, the transformer going off, whether it's on that side or in the neighborhoods back here. Thankfully though, these lights right here have stayed on. We have noticed though at the stadium across the street, their lights did flicker multiple times. Not sure exactly what happened there, but it is back on. But when you just look up here right now, just the sheer force of the wind going through all of the lights here at the stadium, that's just giving you a sense of what this powerful storm can produce. And this is obviously up at altitude here, almost waves of wind just coming and coming. And so when those reach down here, every once in a while, what we obviously call those wind gusts, those really strong winds that come in for 10, 15, 20 seconds, that's when we're seeing some of that debris come. But as I see debris coming through down on here, it's going right through. It's going right back onto Hines and beyond. So it's not sticking around. The wind is just continuously coming and bringing things here. The only thing that I see down here right now is that branch that's been lodged at the basement of our parking garage right now. But of course, kind of our view is a little obstructed when it comes to safety. We really want to make sure that we're not all the way out there, because I can just see the wind ground level at RAVAJE Stadium. No one should be there. You know, inside we know that there are first responders, there are rescue crews ready to respond, but the good thing is we haven't seen a car in sight driving here for hours. And that just shows how Tampa Bay took this so seriously. And, you know, we really hounded it, but it's so important that people either evacuated or hunkered down during this, because this wind and what we're seeing right now is exactly what we can expect. There's another transformer that's going off on the other side of the station I see right now. And there's that kind of electric sound. So we're going to kind of keep track of what's going on. I mean, I've lost count so far on how many of those that we've seen, but we did have to move the car a little bit further back towards where we are to block some of the winds so that our light wouldn't go down. So it's definitely still strong, not letting up anytime soon, at least for so far as I can see. Back to you guys.
All right, Lillian, thank you, and we'll check back with you in just a bit.
You can almost hear, I'm not sure if that was the generator, but there's like some kind of howling, and I'm getting text messages from so many friends who've lost power, and they're asking me what's happening. And I think the sound of these winds when you lose power can be very frightening, especially as we're starting to get a lot of reports of damage coming in. We're going to start seeing more videos come in, more pictures. Obviously, we saw the Tropicana field. You know, we're hearing of a crane that possibly collapsed. So obviously, it's starting to come in. We're starting to see a lot of the damage, and we just thank you for being with us as you're here. If you can hear our voices, we are streaming on several of our radio stations as well.
Yeah.
All right, let's go ahead and move now to our southern counties and move now to Manatee County and Palmetto specifically.
Our Katie LeGrone joins us live now in Palmetto. And Katie, I know you've had some severe wind and rain for hours now. Other reporters in Pinellas and Manatee counties are saying the back end of the storm has actually been stronger than the front end of the storm. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, this is like the wind and the rain that just won't let up. I mean, truly, I've been waiting actually for, you know, sort of some kind of reprieve from this, and it's just not happening. This has been going on for a number of hours. In fact, we're completely in the dark. In fact, the entire block, our home, we're completely in the dark. We've got some lights set up from our battery operated, but we have no power, and nor does it appear that anybody in the neighborhood where we're at here in Palmetto has power as well. On a good note, I have been sort of peeking across the street because there are two shelters housing more than 1,000 people each just up the street from us, and I am sort of peeking through the trees, and I do see some lights on there, so that's good for them. But for us, we have absolutely no power anywhere on this block or in this neighborhood where we're at. You know, this started kind of several hours ago where we started to hear transformers being blown, and then there were lots of flickering in the house that we're staying in, but the backup generator always kind of, you know, was able to make the connection and get us back online. And then probably about an hour or so ago, it just went off and it hasn't come back. In fact, for a while we were sort of locked in the house. This is the garage door, and it served us very well all throughout the evening. It's kind of been like serving as a barrier for us from just the gusts of wind that have been pretty ferocious at times throughout the evening. We had a tough time getting that up because the wind was blowing up against it, and so even the emergency string was tough to pull because of that wind. And so we've got this thing up, we've got a little makeshift, you know, holding a little shovel there to help us keep that up. But essentially what we're dealing with right now in Palmetto is just this relentless
wind and rain, and I'm just waiting for it to end. I know I spoke with one of the producers earlier and said, hey, let's talk to the meteorologist. What's happening in Palmetto? Because this wind and rain just seems to be so ferocious and not letting up. And about an hour and a half or so ago, they had said, yeah, this is going to go on for another 2 hours. And so we're kind of getting used to it at this point. I can tell you that I have been staying in touch with a couple officials in the city of Palmetto, the police chief, and he had mentioned that at this point, of course, they have been off the roads. They've been off the roads for a while now because of conditions, but he tells me that they, thus far at least, have not received any calls for any kind of rescues. Again, there's just a lot going on, and so we don't know if that's truly the lack of a need, or if just people haven't been able to get in touch with emergency officials. And certainly we know that at this point, we're not sure when they're going to end up getting back on the road, but it's just too dangerous for any kind of emergency officials here in Palmetto and in Manatee County and surrounding counties to get out there and help people. But he also mentioned that they are expecting to see a lot of damage and destruction because of this wind. Of course, once daylight comes, they will, once they determine it's safe to get out there, they will get out there, their crews will get out there, they will be driving around, assessing damage, assessing any kind of need for help. But at this point, I mean, we're all still hunkered down. And many of us, not only here in Palmetto and Manatee County, but across the Tampa Bay area, we're hunkered down in blackness. I mean, this is basically what we look like, just as so many of you look like in all different parts of Tampa Bay. This is the inside. I know my photographer, Matt, can only go so far, but we're in total blackness. We're actually leaving the door open because one thing that is coming with this wind is there's a nice little chill in the air. So we're trying to kind of cool down the house a little bit before it gets too hot, because we just don't know how long this power is going to be out for. But of course, we suspect it's going to be a while before any kind of electricity gets back up and running here in Palmetto. Guys.
Thank you. We want to take new video right away, just in tonight. It shows the wind and rain from Hurricane Milton in New Tampa. The power is apparently still on right now, and the wind is whipping that rain around. Again, this is in New Tampa, where, like we've seen in other parts of Tampa Bay, the rain is practically coming in sideways. And it's not just in Tampa, really. We've seen it in many of our other counties as well. And we're continuing to check on conditions all across the Bay Area, including in Hillsborough County.
You know, it might sound backwards, but it seems like we're getting even worse of the storm here. Ruda Olsonaida is now joining us live from Tampa. Ruda, what are you seeing out there? Are conditions getting worse?
Yeah, good evening, you guys. Well, I don't know if you can tell by the rain or by the winds that have picked up, but we are really in the thick of it here in West Tampa. Now the community, they have done their part to try to board up their windows, prepare for this storm. They've seen what Helene has done to this community, but right behind me there's some signs that are waving back and forth, hanging on by a thread. We're seeing some flashes. That, of course, is those transformers going off, but kind of surprisingly, we still have power here. The business behind me, I can't say the same for them. We were just live there about an hour ago, and all the lights were on. We used it as a light source. Now all the lights are gone here. We've come to a safer location here near our home. We're under a cover. We're safe here, and you know, this community has really heeded the warnings. I haven't seen a car out on the roads for a couple of hours now, of course, following the recommendations of officials, and people really haven't been outside either. There were a few people with some umbrellas, some rain boots, looking like they were packing some things perhaps, but now everyone's hunkered down inside. And I don't know if you can tell, but the flashing of the power, it's going in and out, and we just keep on saying, you know, hang in there. We need all the power we can get. Just like a few of the other reporters, we're keeping that AC on as long as we can. We know this storm is unexpected, right? We thought the power would already be out by now. We thought maybe the rain would maybe subside by now, but this storm has a mind of its own, and here the Tampa community is rallying together. We've seen neighbors, you know, helping neighbors. The wind, though, that's really the story here. That really hasn't let up, and you can't see it because it's a little bit further down, but there's a utility pole that's doing a little bit of an angle lean, and we've heard some explosions from inside the home, so we don't know if those are the transformers from that exact utility pole, but it's a mess here. And on the ground, there's a lot of debris, and then the wind is taking it to other areas. The street was pretty clear. There weren't piles of debris here earlier after Helene, but I'm sure it might be a different story for this community as they now have to pick up the pieces. What a rough couple days, right? I mean, we were just on Davis Island talking to some of the folks there. They said they had about to 4 inches of water, and unfortunately, the night is young. So they're worried. They were piling up sandbags of what might happen here with Milton, taking every precaution they possibly can. But we just want to make sure that you're informed. So here in West Tampa, the rain, the wind, still a problem, ripping off some of those business signs. That 7-Eleven we've been showing you that's been boarded up. Now those plywoods are really starting to come off here. So we go another gust of wind. It's coming right at my back here, and everyone's hanging on. We've got such an amazing crew. We've got photographers really doing an amazing job. So we just want to thank everybody that's out here in these elements and bringing you guys what's going on.
Hang in there. Thank you for that report. We'll check in with you in a little bit. And we're continuing to check on conditions in Pinellas County, especially where the winds were really intensifying, but apparently now they've been lessening some.
At least that's what we're hearing from ABC Action News reporter Kylie McGivern, showing us what conditions are like live from Seminole now. Kylie, how's it looking out there?
Yes, you can see that it's still windy. I mean, there are some gusts that are coming through right as I say that, but not at the same level as when we checked in with you guys earlier within the last couple of hours when it felt like we were more in the thick of it. So again, still here, very windy, but before I was kind of having to brace against our vehicle here, whereas now not quite as bad as it was before. Now the area around us, very dark. I know that we were just talking before you all came to us about the different power outages. Every time we've checked Pinellas County, it looks like overwhelmingly has the most power outages. We lost power, we want to say around 6 o'clock or so here. I think we were one of the first crews to lose power. Down the road, at least at one point, yes, we can see like one of the street lights. There was one home that still had a bit of power in the area. So we're in one community in Seminole County, and the area that we're at now is we want to continue to remind people who may just now be joining us. We're in an area that was not in a mandatory evacuation zone. So this is somewhere where a lot of places are boarded up. They've decided to stay. But this is somewhere where, again, thankfully, we have not seen anyone out on the roads. So for now, in Pinellas County and Seminole, we will send it back to you guys.
Well, Kylie, I wanted to ask you a question because we know that you've covered, obviously, we had Debbie and then Helene, and we saw you in flooding over on Bayshore with the storm surge. Talk about the difference between these storms when you're running from water and now you're telling people to hide from this wind. What's the difference for you out there?
I think the big difference here is, you know, we've been talking about storm surge so much, and rightfully so, but where we're at right now, I mean, when I told some of my friends and family, hey, I'm going to be covering this storm from Pinellas County, they were like, wait, where? Where are you going? What? But when we had come to see where we would be staying at this home in this neighborhood, I'll tell you guys, we actually spoke with the homeowner who said, again, this is above the area that would flood. This is out of the evacuation zone. We've got a new roof on this place. We are boarded up where we are. And so the threat is just different where we are. And we're seeing some of the videos come in from other parts along our coast and everything. And even if we were to get closer to the water, I'm sure it would be a different story. But we're a bit further inland, so it was more some debris that we had seen on the side of the roads that were left from Helene in this area, and then trying to get that out of the way, of course, before this storm. But we can tell you, at least where we've been in this area, you know, a lot of it's been very picked up, and a lot of homes, I mean, more than I expected, pleasantly surprised, were boarded up, did have storm windows and such. And so that's what we're seeing in this particular area, I know, as we check in with different communities across the Tampa Bay region.
Kylie, and I have one more question for you. I know you were born and raised in the Bay Area. This is where your friends are. This is where your parents still are. And I'm wondering, since you've really ridden out this whole storm, you did Debbie, you did Helene, First of all, how are you doing? Because I know it has to be an emotional toll that it takes with someone who's born and raised here. But also, more importantly, how do you feel in regards to seeing all these hurricanes growing up, none of them hitting here, and after 100 years now, here we are, probably one of the worst storms that the Bay Area has ever seen and maybe will ever see?
Yes, it's kind of surreal because it's like a big picture about, you know, I grew up having hurricane days in school where you got out of school, my mom would pick my sister and I up, we'd have to get everything up off of the floor and evacuate, and so, you know, it's basically a part of life as a Floridian, as so many of us know. Moving away, then moving back to Florida in the last 6 years, it's one of those things where we've covered a lot of these storms, but to be honest with you, a lot of times we are going into other communities and we are talking with people who this is their home, this is their backyard, and of course, you know, we can relate as Floridians, our hearts go out to them, but this is, as a lot of us have been saying, it's even more personal. It became more real and more sobering, for lack of a better word, with Helene. And I think perhaps one silver lining of that, at least I personally know so many more people that evacuated for this storm than I think would have otherwise, because there's this sense of we'll be fine, and then realizing how vulnerable we are. So, you know, my parents are in Orlando right now with my sister. I grew up along the coast in Tarpon. You know, again, like so many people, you live near the water and then you realize you've got to get away from the water. And so one of our photojournalists, Randy Wright, who's here, you know, his family in Lutz, you're thinking you're further inland, but this is a storm that for so many of us in different ways that call this area home, we have been concerned for different reasons. And so right now we're really talking about what are the coming days going to bring. As we get through the storm tonight, what is it going to look like when we get up tomorrow, and what communities are going to be heading to share their stories. And this is what it's about. It's about you. It's sharing your stories, giving you information, and being there with you every step of the way. So we will send it back to you guys.
All right, Kylie McGivern live for us. Again, so many of us have family and home here. We want to quickly go to new video now. We were talking about reports of a crane that collapsed. We now have video of it, and I'm not sure if we can take it. Once we do, I want you guys to look at the lights as the crane goes down, because St. Pete Fire Rescue does confirm that the crane did fall at a condo tower in downtown St. Pete. Watch it again. You're going to watch for the lights here.
There it
Boom.
is.
There it is.
Yeah.
You saw it come down. Again, confirming from St. Pete Police and Fire Rescue that this crane has collapsed at a condo building at the 400 Central building construction site. Thankfully, at this point, no reports of anyone hurt right now. Of course, St. Pete Fire Rescue is asking you to avoid this area. If you want to see it one more time, I think the video is going to be queued up. You're going to look for a light, a big red flash there. We started getting several. There it is. Several reports of this coming down. What we do know is that first responders will start conducting damage assessments when conditions allow. Obviously, those conditions don't allow right now. And in that same email, St. Pete did confirm that the roof on Tropicana Field ripped off, and I think that's where we're going to next, to Eric.
Yeah, and I also want to mention, too, that they had already warned about the cranes all across the Bay Area with all the construction that's going on, especially with those high-rises in many of our counties, especially Pinellas and Hillsborough.
Yeah.
But we do want to stay in Pinellas County and obviously the southern area, because that's what's getting the brunt of our severe weather right now. And our ABC Action News reporter Eric Waxler has been in St. Pete, and you were there when nobody else was, when literally the roof at Tropicana Field ripped off because of the winds out there. Eric, tell us about it.
Yeah, unreal what we're seeing up here in downtown St. Petersburg. We'll talk about Tropicana Field in a second, but we're talking about that crane collapse, and as you mentioned, the city put out warnings because there are 4 different construction sites with cranes that they were worried about. We've heard lots of noises tonight, not sure what some of them were, but we did hear a loud crash that might have been, in fact, that crane. You see we're looking at one of the cranes that is still standing, and hopefully it remains that way, but such a danger, such a concern for the people that live near any of those large cranes. So something definitely to be on the lookout for. And again, we were talking about it earlier, and we look again at an unbelievable sight. Tropicana Field. I mean, one of the landmarks of the Tampa Bay area that has stood here since 1990, and we're seeing a large portion of the roof just shredded, just ripped off. As far as we can tell from our vantage point, there doesn't appear to be any damage to the structure. You still see the steel beams that all meet there at the apex, all still seem to be in place, but it just appears that large sections of the roof are gone. What happened to them, we're not exactly sure. You can still see remnants, of course, that are attached to the beams, but we're wondering what happened to the large sections and if they simply flew off into somebody's neighborhood. If that's happened, please let us know, or if they dropped down inside. Now, the number one thing we want to tell you is, as far as we know, according to St. Pete Fire Rescue, no one was injured in what happened here at Tropicana Field. We said earlier that it was being used as a staging area for so many first responders and electrical workers. We were told that all the cots that were inside the field that we'd seen those pictures of with thousands of cots on the field, that those were already gone. We're not exactly sure, but we're told that all of that staging was already gone. That was before the storm, a setup before the storm. So as far as we know, people were not in there sleeping as we feared at first when we first saw this. Because it was being used as a staging area. And again, we're not sure who was in the stadium when this happened. This is all hopefully information we'll get as soon as possible. We have not seen any emergency vehicles, no fire trucks, no ambulances around the stadium. I'm not seeing any flashing lights still. But what is amazing, you still see the lights inside the stadium are on. You see the purple lights. But Tropicana Field, the home of the Tampa Bay Rays for a little while longer before a new stadium built, is in need of major repairs thanks to Hurricane Milton. The stadium, again, has stood here in St. Petersburg. You know, if you're not from the area, you might not remember the stadium was built before the Tampa Bay Rays existed. The stadium was built with the hopes of luring a baseball team to the Tampa St. Pete area. And early on, it was the Florida Suncoast Dome. I saw Guns N' Roses here in the early 90s, going way back. And of course, all of us, many of us, I'm sure, have been to countless Rays games and enjoyed that roof on these hot summer days or rainy days here. And now a big portion of that roof is gone. And boy, I don't know if you can hear it, but the flapping of the remaining pieces of the roof that are still attached as these wind gusts, you can see them just flapping in the wind. On the east side of the stadium that we can't really see, but I do see pieces of it, pieces of the roof seem to be flapping up. So I cannot tell if there's also, now you know what, looking through the stadium I do see, it looks like that side has major rips as well in it. So this is just it's an unbelievable sight. When I first came up on the roof and saw it, you know, you kind of are taken aback because, again, a landmark of St. Petersburg just absolutely shredded the roof because of Hurricane Milton and these winds near 100 miles an hour that we were experiencing at the ground level on the other side of this building. So we did not see when this happened. We started to hear a buzz about something wrong at Tropicana Field and made our way up here to the roof, and there it is. We'll throw it back to you guys.
Yeah, if you can hear me, I'm curious because as we see,
Yes.
the power is still on, which is, you know,
Right.
concerning as well now that it's open to the elements. But also, since you've been in that area for really all day and into the night, are you seeing power outages in that area, but just I mean, I don't know, maybe they have a generator too, it's very possible. But is it strange
Right.
that the lights are still on?
Yeah, you know, that's a good question. Looking around, I mean, we have a pretty good vantage point of downtown St. Pete. We're looking east now at where many of the larger buildings are, and it looks like most of the power is still on. We've had some flickering, some surges here at the hotel we're staying at. We have heard transformers blow, but as you see, the lights are on in all these apartments right here along Central Avenue. And yeah, the power is still on in the Trop. I can see it in the concourse areas, the lower parts of the stadium are still on. I do not see any what would look like any kind of structural damage. It really is just that I'm going to call it a canvas roof. You know, I can't claim to know I know exactly what material it's made of, but it is just shredded. I mean, it looks like paper. It looks like tissue paper blowing in the wind now. You can just see it as these wind gusts come. And obviously the rain is just pouring into Tropicana Field right now. Yeah, that was a pretty good gust right there.
Question, Eric. It's Nadine here.
And we're on the backs. Hey, Nadine.
Hey,
Yes.
just really quick. I know you said you didn't see it originally. You went up to the roof. Have you just noticed more of this rip off as you're watching this? Because I know Wendy and I were watching this your first hit, and our jaws were just on the floor.
Right.
Are you watching more of it kind of peel away?
You know, it's hard to exactly see. I don't claim to have 20/20 vision and the darkness and the lights, but you know, now as I look through the stadium to what would be the south side, I feel like I have seen more of it ripped off kind of on that side as you were looking through the stadium out the other end, basically. It seems like when this first happened, it was more just on what would be the northwest corner of the stadium. You know, I'm looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or 6 panels. You know, each one is separated by those steel beams. Those were gone, but now I feel like I'm seeing, if you go around to what would be more the south part of the stadium, I feel like I'm seeing more missing. I'm seeing sky through the stadium. And then again on the east side of the stadium, I can't see it, but I'm seeing big flaps of the roof blowing up and down with the wind. So that tells me that, you know, and again, as you look through that way, I'm starting to feel like I see openings as well. So, you know, by the end of this night, there might not be any of this roof left. Obviously, as more wind gets inside the stadium, that's only compromising the integrity of all of it. And, you know, who knows, it might have started with one little opening that led to what we're seeing right now.
All right, I think Chief Meteorologist Dennis Phillips may want to ask you a few questions. Dennis?
Actually, Wendy, I want to do the weather.
Oh, okay. Go for it.
Yeah, you know,
Please
I want to tell people what's happening out there because there is a lot going on, obviously. We still have 80 to 90 mile an hour winds. We still have torrential downpours. We still have catastrophic flooding. I mean, let's continue to focus on folks who need to know what's going on in terms of safety. And we, as I said, again, we still have a flash flood warning in effect for Pinellas County, for Pasco County, for Hillsborough, and for Polk County. And this area right now has seen rainfall way over 12 to 14 inches of rain. I mean, the flooding in itself could be catastrophic. We have not heard a lot of reports, guys. Have you actually heard of any reports of specific areas?
No.
Yeah,
I'm going to message the National Weather Service right now and see if they're getting anything, but we haven't gotten any reports from them at this point.
But what we are getting reports are obviously of all of the wind, 80, 90 mile an hour. We gusted over 100 miles an hour in St. Pete. I mean, potentially maybe that's when the roof went on the Trop. But overall, the heaviest wind is winding down. There's still the backside over here in the Gulf, and we will watch that for coastal areas. But at this point in time, there is still that flash flood warning until 4 o'clock. Radar indicated, obviously, we have seen rainfall in excess of 12, 13, 14 inches of rain. And obviously, when you get an offshore flow like we've had in these areas, that's a blessing. Because I cannot tell you how many times when there's been a hurricane or a tropical storm and we've had an onshore flow. So what happens is the rain falls, and here's some of the totals: 9.5, 10 inches, Pasco, Hernando, Citrus County, close to a foot of rain, over a foot of rain in Hillsborough County. So it's all moving east, and we're still have that very narrow and intense band of wind across the area as well. But like I was saying, when you have that onshore flow, the rain falls and it has a tough time draining and it floods. But because we have had an offshore flow, all the water, we drained the bay again. And so when you have all those places, this happened with Irma, as a matter of fact, the exact same thing, because I remember we had a ton of rain and we had no flooding with that rain. And I remember saying it was a blessing because fortunately that offshore flow allowed the water to quickly drain. Now, when you get rain at over 5 inches an hour, which is what we had in St. Pete, I believe that is an all-time record. I seem to remember this summer we had a 1 hour, it might have been at Tampa, but we had a 1 hour rainfall of about 4.92 inches, and that was the all-time record rain. And that was with an afternoon thunderstorm. Remember that? I think that was September 7th, actually. So now we're looking at The storm is winding down. Winds are now down to 105 miles an hour, and it doesn't even look like a tropical system anymore. It just looks like a big blob of rain, kind of a nor'easter in a sense. So here's the latest, 105, east-northeast at 16. The pressure continues to rise as this weekend. Current gusts at the airport in Tampa right now, 82. There is your center. Right there is your center. I'm not even going to call it an eye anymore because I don't really think it's an eye anymore. 51 Apollo Beach, 62 Mayaca City, 76 hurricane-force winds still blowing right now in St. Pete. I got to take this out. Those surge numbers are not going to verify. I mean, we talked about this for days on end. The Hurricane Center, there's going to be big surge and already has been big surge Sarasota southward. But it all boiled down to whether or not this storm went into the bay or got close enough to give an onshore flow, and fortunately, it never did. Yes, we will get on the backside some of that water coming up, and there will still be some surge, but they are not going to be anywhere near the totals if that storm had been 30, 40 miles more to the north. Again, there it is, east-northeast at 16. Looking just more like a blob than anything else, and the latest track as of 11 o'clock brings it across the state by tomorrow morning, 8 a.m., down to 80, still technically a hurricane. They may even transition it to a non-tropical system shortly thereafter. Jason, it looks like you got some pictures, and still looking at me. We're still hearing the creaking in here in the studio.
Yeah.
By the way, did you notice that the news anchors, Wendy and Nadine, went into the safety of the other studio, and they leave the weather guys out here to fend for ourselves? Did you notice that?
I know.
Bring up our mics.
Yeah, bring them up.
Also, in fairness, when your boss tells you for your safety, we're going to put you in another studio.
We're having them bring up the mics because, you know, we need to give it right back to you.
Yeah, it was for our safety.
You know who's important. That's all I'm saying. You know who's important. Jason, what do you got?
All right, let's take it back outside right now. This is a live look from our station here at ABC Action News, right across the street from Raymond James Stadium and Himes Avenue. In the middle of the heaviest of the rainfall was a river. It was completely flooded, and with the wind, of course, it even had almost like white caps on it, which you would see out into the Gulf of Mexico. It still looks like we've got most of the roadway covered up with some flooded roads, and this is pretty much everybody here from Manatee and Pinellas counties north through Hillsborough, and then also up to Polk County as well. I do want to do a little bit of a radar tour, and we should be getting in the new National Hurricane Center update at any point if this isn't the new one right now. Still 105-mile-per-hour winds. We haven't seen any gusts lately approaching 105 miles per hour, but we are still getting some areas with gusts easily 70 to 80 miles per hour. Lakeland, you have gusted to hurricane force at 76 miles per hour. So even as that center continues to move inland, it's still packing quite a punch. As we talked about this earlier today, if you joined our coverage 6-7 hours ago, I was talking about how this system was going to transition into what we call an extratropical cyclone. And you're going to hear about that as you watch the national media cover this over the next couple of days as it pulls away. And basically all it's doing is it's turning into what we would see more so in the mid-Atlantic or the northeast as we're getting later and later into the season. Of course, we've got the cold front moving in. That will definitely help us out over the next few days with helping not allow temperatures to soar to record levels like we had just 2 weeks ago. Of course, after we left Helene, we had record high temperatures consistently, and there's the new update. So it's down to 100 now. So that's the very latest in here from the National Hurricane Center. So still centered at 100 miles per hour. Could see some gusts at that, but the inland gusts so far have been generally peaking between 70 and 80 miles per hour. So there's a look at what we're watching. There was the landfall point here at Siesta Key, and that center continues to move in. But what the problem has been is that while, yes, we saw significant wind around the center, it's been that northern eye wall that's moved through St. Pete, Tampa, Clearwater, and now over to Lakeland. And that's what's unfortunately produced 16 inches of rainfall in the city of St. Pete at Albert Whitted Airport. Like Dennis said, over 5 inches of rain in 1 hour. Over a 3-hour period, over 9 inches of rain in 3 hours. And Greg, you were talking about this too. We're talking about some of us picking up months worth of rainfall here in 3 hours time, especially as our rainy season is winding down and we're about to transition back into the dry season. So watching this heavy rain finally start to abate quite a bit here for coastal areas, but our inland spots, you're still looking at significant rainfall here for you. Check this out. I just updated this. I'm about to post it to social media. These are the latest peak wind gusts that the National Weather Service has reported to us. Unofficial 105-mile-per-hour wind gusts at Anna Maria Island. That was from a storm spotter. I'm waiting for them to confirm that, but officially 102 in Sarasota, the peak gust so far. We did have a 105-mile-per-hour gust confirmed at Egmont Pass, but that's over over open water. That's a maritime gust, not a land gust. St. Pete, 101 miles per hour. So certainly not shocking to see the trop in the condition that it is right now when we had gusts over 100. Tampa closing in on 100. We peaked at 97 miles per hour here at Tampa International Airport so far. Venice holding at 90 from earlier today. And we're looking at Clearwater Beach at Pier 60. We topped out at 90 miles per hour as well. So no surprise, we have almost 2 million Floridians without power right now. If you're watching us from our streaming app on your phone, thank you for continuing to watch our coverage as you've lost power. It's going to be some time before some of us get power back. Of course, after Helene and Pinellas County, it took quite a bit of time. It took well over a week for us to finally get all those power outages back to none. So this is what we're going to be dealing with here for the next 5, 7, 14-day period. Some of you could be without power because of the extensive tree damage that we're likely seeing out there and power line damage as we go not only for the next week, but possibly 2 weeks. But like I mentioned a second ago, unlike Helene, we're not going to see excessive heat behind this. It's going to be much more comfortable with temperatures into the 80s, low 80s for the next 2 days, overnight lows into the 70s. That's still a little on the muggy side, but some of our inland spots, maybe near the coast, especially north, could be dropping into the 60s here for the next couple of days. So there's all the warnings. That we still have the flash flood warning ongoing here for all these areas in kind of this dark red or light brown color. And then we continue to see flood warnings outside of this as well. So pretty much everybody from Manatee north under a flood warning, as we've seen, of course, all that excessive rainfall. I'm going to take the warnings off, and we're going to start doing a little bit of a radar tour here. We'll start in the center where it's currently at, and that's over Polk County, south of I-4. It's moving across Lake Wales right now. North of Frostproof, Bartow, it's moving over your area. That's the center of circulation, but again, it's not what it was as it was coming on shore with those 115, 125 mile per hour winds, but still seeing gusts in Lakeland over 70 miles per hour. So extremely heavy rainfall continues, excessive flooding possible in these areas here along and north of I-4. So from Gibsonia and Kathleen, north of Lakeland now over to Polk City and heading up toward the Poinciana area here on I-4 before you get to the Orlando Metro. That's where we're looking at extremely heavy rainfall currently. Now let's go back a little more to the west here in south where landfall was. Still some light rain for the most part. It's light at this point, but we are looking at extremely gusty winds still, with Sarasota still gusting over 70 miles per hour, even though the storm center is pulling farther and farther away and heading inland. North up to Bradenton, still looking at some extremely heavy rainfall. Notice the general movement of the rain, though, and this is important, like Dennis was pointing out as far as surge goes. We've got the winds coming in like this. So we're not seeing a perpendicular push of that water at the coast, which would increase the surge potential here behind the system as our winds are turning more onshore. And once we start to get more back to that perpendicular flow by tomorrow morning into the early afternoon, I should say this morning now that it's past midnight, that's when we could see a little bit of water rise, but the system too far away for us to have those 6, 9, 12, 15-foot surge values that the National Hurricane Center was giving us as those worst case scenarios. So with that being said, a little bit of water rise, not out of the question, but it doesn't look like we're going to see significant water rise behind this system as we get our winds turning back onshore. So that's what it looks like here in St. Pete. We had that band that was just stuck over top of St. Pete, Clearwater, up to Tarpon and Palm Harbor, over to Tampa, Brandon as well. Radar estimates continue to show 12 to 18 inches of rain so far, with St. Pete having the most at this point. Over 16 was the last report that we got from the National Weather Service in Ruskin. So there's what it looks like in Pinellas County. Lighter rain, but still very strong winds. Winds continue to gust over 60 miles per hour. In fact, let me take a peek and see if anything new has popped up as far as these gusts go. And it is, so still gusting at Tampa Executive Airport at 65 miles per hour, Lakeland at 60, Punta Gorda still gusting at 71. That's pretty impressive, being that's so far away. Sebring, you're gusting to 67, so nearing the center here in Sebring and southern Polk County, getting into northern Highlands. And then within the last 25 minutes, reported 93 mile per hour gust in St. Petersburg. So still extremely strong winds coming in behind the system. And Dennis talked about this, how this system kind of transitions. You get this jet that happens that continues to increase the winds on the backside of the system. So I haven't gotten one of those reports in 25 minutes, but still within the last half hour, 94, 91 mile per hour gust in St. Peter's, 93 mile per hour gust in St. Pete. So now a little more to the east here in downtown Tampa. Again, the damage has been done. Even though we're not getting reports of flooding from the National Weather Service, we know it's happening but nobody's out in the streets right now. Everybody's been preparing for this hurricane for 3 days now. And a lot of the areas, of course, in zone A and B where we're seeing this freshwater flooding happening, they evacuated. So we're not getting the first responders out there doing rescues because hopefully everybody has been in their safe place or they've evacuated. Now north here in Pasco County, you're still looking at some really heavy rainfall here along 98 and 301 east of 75. Once you get west, still of course seeing some very strong gusts here as well. And north up through places like Brooksville, we've had successive gusts here in Brooksville over 76 miles per hour. So even our northern spots well removed away from the center as it was coming on shore near Siesta Key earlier this evening or yet last night. Yeah, we were still looking at some very strong wind gusts here as well. And the power outages are numerous here for the Nature Coast too. They're not as extreme as areas down to the south. In fact, some of those numbers almost up to 300,000 at last check here in Pinellas County. Let me take a peek at what it says now. 400,000 just in Pinellas County without power. In Hillsborough County, 325,000, and then north 131,000 in Pasco County without, and 53,000 customers in Hernando, 33,000 in Citrus County. Now down south in Manatee, 201,000 customers without power, 226,000 without power in Sarasota, and 93,000 without power in Polk County.
Jason, when you look at the percentages here,
Yeah.
I mean, some of these counties, 70, 80, it looks like 75, 80%
Yeah,
of the county.
And Hardy County, almost 100%.
Almost 100%. So when we talked about these are going to be long duration outages, in some of these places, there are going to be places that don't have power for a week or two.
Yeah, at a minimum a week or two. And unfortunately in places like St. Pete, like I said a second ago, we just saw that even though Pinellas County is our second most populated county here, so you know obviously more resources going into those areas, it still took over a week for us to finally get all the power restored after Helene, when the bulk of those power outages were on the coast because of that storm surge that wiped out a lot of our coastal areas, which of course are the most populated spots here right on the water, right? So yeah, it's going to take a lot of time for us to get back to some kind of a normal power situation. Hopefully for your community, it won't take as long. If it does take long, though, again, Mother Nature being a little kind to us after not being so kind with Milton, where we are looking at a little bit more in the way of some more comfortable weather. I don't want to call it cool, but compared to the record high temperatures we had a couple of days after Helene, I think it was like 94, 93 in Tampa, 92 degrees, and heat index values that were over 100. We do not have that in the forecast here for the next 3 to 5 days. So that's what we're looking at here now. Again, down south, where the eye made landfall near Siesta Key, significant improvements over the next 3 to 4 hour period. I think by the time we get to sunrise, we're basically going to wrap up with these tropical storm and hurricane force gusts that we're seeing out there right now. So let me show you a couple of other things. I'm going to skip ahead here through a couple of other graphics. This is what I wanted to show you too. So Greg, you posted this map earlier. It updates automatically by itself,
It does,
correct?
yes,
Okay,
correct.
so these are the updated ones.
So I can tell you the numbers that I see have changed.
Yeah.
Those Lakeland numbers, that was not a double-digit number
Yeah.
last time I showed that. So
Okay.
the numbers in St. Pete and Pinellas County have kind of slowed down.
Yeah.
But the numbers up in Polk County really, really have gone up.
So that's where we're really seeing the center with that heavy rain band I showed you on the radar now setting up here along and north of I-4. And this is unfortunately what we expected. We talked about this leading up to it, that somewhere on the north side, depending on where the center moves on shore, that northern eye wall, as it's transitioning to that weird extratropical cyclone thing that I talked about a minute ago, that's what happens in these storm systems, is that the northern eye wall, just the convection that develops in these areas, the showers, the thunderstorms that blow up, can be more extensive than a pretty strong hurricane coming in when it's transitioning into these non-tropical systems. And that's what happened tonight. And unfortunately, it's set up right over top of us here in Pinellas, Hillsborough. I was looking at the rain gauges, the rain estimates at my house in Hillsborough County, and I've got a foot of rain at my house. Haven't heard from my neighbors in a while, so Ben, Josh, if you're watching, they've been the ones taking care and checking the house for me. Let me know. We've got a retention pond in the back of my house that hopefully floods the other way and not toward my house. But this is what a lot of us are dealing with too, and we can't even get out right now and assess what flooding damage is out there or what your neighborhoods look like, because again, we're still looking at gusts that are over 60, 70 miles per hour. It's just too dangerous with the potential for some flying debris out there. So yeah, anywhere from 12 to 14 to 16 inches of rain through all of Pinellas County. The extreme northern spot of Pinellas County here, Tarpon Springs, a little less. But down towards St. Pete, again, an actual measurement at Albert Whitted showing that, yes, we are looking at more than 16 inches of rain here in downtown St. Pete. Tampa at the airport, I haven't looked at the actual airport observation yet. Let me see if I can do a quick calculation here in my head. It looks like Tampa is not reporting anymore, so we may have lost the observation site here with these 97, 100-mile-per-hour wind gusts. Quick adding up numbers in my head, it looks like Tampa's over 10 inches as well. So yeah, Hillsborough County seeing over 10 inches of rainfall too. And we're looking at over 14 inches of rain, like Greg said, now showing up in sections of northern Polk County. So I'll widen this out a little bit. These numbers will go away, and you can clearly see what we were talking about, how that northern eye wall, as this transition is happening, it just blew up with showers and thunderstorms. I'm curious to see what it looks like offshore, though, where these numbers here in this gray. 15 to 16. So thankfully that more widespread area, 15 to 16 inches of rain, didn't show up. So that's another thing we're going to have to watch, significant flooding. Again, we're not sure what's happening out there tonight because everything in St. Pete. Incredible to see these strong winds as the center is now moving into Polk County. You see that lighter shade of color there in Haines City and Lakeland, 51 and 59 miles per hour. That's the center. So you'd think those strongest winds would be there, but as this system is again transitioning to a non-tropical low pressure, that's what we're watching, that the backside of this system is looking at these winds really, really strong as well. Let me go and find our Futurecast model and see if it is showing these winds lightening up here at any time soon. Forgive me, my weather show is a complete mess right now because we've all been working off of this one show, so I've got to go and find things.
And just by the way, it's not a significant fact, but no surprise, Tampa did set a daily rainfall record just as of the 5 p.m. climate report at 4.2 inches.
A new book by journalist
So, eine neue Folge Jung Naiv mit dem altbekannten Gast. Wer bist du nochmal?
Mein Name ist Richard David Brecht.
Was machst du, Richard?
Ich schreibe Bücher.
Nur Bücher?
Ich halte auch Vorträge. Ich mache auch einen Podcast.
Also bist du Podcaster?
Nee, also Berufspodcaster würde ich das vielleicht nicht nennen. Das ist nicht das Hauptthema in meinem Leben ist Bücher schreiben und Vorträge halten.
Obwohl das meiste, wo du wöchentlich so erscheinst, ist in einem Podcast.
Ja, wöchentlich, das ist klar. Mit Büchern erscheint man nicht wöchentlich. Bücher erscheint man, wenn man so fleißig ist wie ich, vielleicht jährlich.
Ja, immerhin.
Aber ist trotzdem das, was am meisten Arbeit macht.
Bist du noch philosophisch tätig?
Ich finde, dass meine Bücher einiges mit Philosophie zu tun haben. Insofern bin ich auf jeden Fall philosophisch tätig.
Ich habe immer die letzten Male immer bekommen, der Brecht ist gar kein Philosoph.
Ja, ich höre in letzter Zeit die sehr lustige Pointe, ich sei Germanist. Das ist deswegen interessant, weil es ein Fach ist, das ich noch nicht mal studiert habe. Also man muss schon sehr unbedarft sein und sich nie mit der Universität zu Köln beschäftigt haben, um zu sehen, dass das Fach Germanistik dort gar nicht studiert werden kann. Ich habe da unter anderem deutsche Philologie studiert, vielleicht meinen Sie das. Irgendein Witzbold hat das mal auf Wikipedia geschrieben und wenn Journalisten mich nicht leiden können, vor allen Dingen Feuilleton-Journalisten, die wahrscheinlich alle selber Germanistik studiert haben, dann tun sie mir die Ehre an, mich Germanist zu nennen. Wo ich glaube, dass alle Germanistik-Professoren in Deutschland vor Wut schäumen werden darüber. Okay. Aber kann man halt nichts machen. Wer nicht die Kraft aufbringt, ein bisschen zu recherchieren, der einigt sich auf Germanist.
Ich glaube, die Kritik an Philosoph ist, dass du das ja gar nicht irgendwie, da keine Abschlussarbeit hast. Und
ich habe es studiert und in Köln macht man ein Rigorosum, wenn man promoviert.
Was ist das?
Dann wird man in allen 3 Fächern, die man studiert hat, in jedem Fach einzeln geprüft, auch in Philosophie.
Okay.
Ja.
Und darum
also keine Disputatio, so eine Arbeit, wie man das heute meistens hat, sondern Rigorosum, also nochmal quasi eine komplette Magisterprüfung für Doktoranden.
Ja. Und darum kannst du die Philosophie.
Bin ich sozusagen examinierter Philosoph, ja.
Da gibt ja dann mal die irgendwie also an Unis arbeiten und da Philosophie unterrichten und sagen dann, der ist keiner.
Okay, also obwohl er einen Abschluss darin gemacht hat, ein Rigorosum darin gemacht hat und 11 Jahre lang in Lüneburg Philosophie unterrichtet hat und Vorlesungen gemacht hat und Seminare gemacht hat und an der Hochschule für Musik mittlerweile auch seit 11, 12 Jahren Philosophie und Ästhetik unterrichtet. Wittgenstein hat mal gesagt, Philosophie ist eine Tätigkeit und kein Fach. Aha. Ich bin mir nicht sicher, ob jeder, der an einer philosophischen Fakultät oder einem philosophischen Seminar unterrichtet, ein Philosoph ist. Ich hatte sogar viele Philosophieprofessoren, die sich selber nicht Philosophen genannt haben. Zum Beispiel, weil sie perfekte Altbausanierer im Bereich des Geistes waren, sich wunderbar mit Platon und Aristoteles auskannten und ihre Aufgabe darin sahen, das zu erklären. Die haben sich nicht selbst für Philosophen gehalten.
Du hältst dich aber für einen.
Naja, also ich würde sagen, wenn man Philosophie als die Frage nach dem richtigen Leben und dem richtigen Zusammenleben und der richtigen Gesellschaft versteht, und das ist die ursprüngliche Bedeutung von Philosophie, dann kann man das, was ich mache, wohl Philosophie nennen.
Ich habe mir immer gemerkt, dass Philosophie ist das Denken übers Denken.
Ja, oder vielleicht auch der Versuch, das Implizite im Expliziten klarzumachen. Aha. Ja, also hinter die Kulissen zu gucken, hinter die Kulissen des eigenen Geistes, der eigenen Klischees, der eigenen Vorurteile, der eigenen Welthaltungen und so weiter und so weiter. Aber es gibt so viele Definitionen, was Philosophie ist, dass man sich nicht leicht auf eine einigen kann.
Aber dich ärgert es nicht, dass dir manche das absprechen wollen und absprechen?
Wir leben in einem freien Land. Ja, und jeder, der einen Artikel schreiben kann, der darf da auch seine Meinung zu haben.
Hast du jetzt, also mir kommt das so vor, die letzten 5 Jahre wirst du deutlich kritisch in der Öffentlichkeit gesehen als die ersten 10, 15 Jahre, oder?
Nee.
Nein?
Nee. Das lese ich häufig und da empfehle ich mal, ich habe zu Hause Rezensionsmappen. Ne, also wie meine anderen Bücher früher aufgenommen worden sind. Nein, anders kritisch. Also in den ersten Jahren der Rezeption dessen, was ich gemacht habe, also als Wer bin ich geschrieben habe, Liebe ein unordentliches Gefühl, Kunst kein Egoist zu sein, da gab es das Etikett Popphilosoph.
Ah ja.
Ne? Oder Mick Jagger des Sachbuchs, ja? Oder von Sloterdijk, André Rieu der Philosophie. Also mit anderen Worten, jemand, der als zur Sahneschnitte verwandelt, was eigentlich Vollkornbrot gewesen ist. Ja? Also jemand, der die Dinge zu sehr popularisiert. Und das war über die ersten Jahre, sozusagen die Hälfte der öffentlichen Rezeption, das Hauptbild in den Medien von mir. Also guck mal, ob du es schaffst, in der FAZ oder in der Süddeutschen irgendeine positive Rezension aus den ersten Jahren zu finden. Die wirst du nicht finden.
Aber da geht es ja meistens dann um deine Bücher, die du geschrieben hast. Und jetzt die letzten Jahre...
Nö, es ging auch um mediale Auftritte, war genau dasselbe. Fernsehphilosoph, Medienphilosoph und so. Ja. Es gab ein paar positive Sachen. Spiegel hat zweimal was Nettes geschrieben und so. Lange ist es her. Würden sie heute auch nicht mehr machen. Heute ist der Unterschied einfach deswegen, wir leben in einer anderen Zeit. Das ist der erste Grund. Das heißt, die gesamte Öffentlichkeit hat einen enormen Strukturwandel mitgemacht. Es gab mal jemand, der hat mich, und fand ich nicht uninteressant, als den Philosophen der Merkel-Jahre bezeichnet. Aha. Ja, und das ist insofern ganz interessant, weil das ja auch stimmt. Also die Art von philosophischen Büchern, die ich geschrieben habe, den Menschen zu helfen, Philosophie besser zu verstehen, das war ja am Anfang das Anliegen, ne? So ein bisschen wegzulenken von fernöstlichen und esoterischen Weisheiten und die abendländische Philosophie aufzubereiten und zu gucken, was weiß man darüber, Philosophie mit Naturwissenschaften zusammenzubringen. Das alles passte sehr gut in eine ruhige Welt- und Gesellschaftslage. Nur mittlerweile, brauchen wir nicht lange darüber zu diskutieren, leben wir in einer völlig anderen Zeit. Wir leben auch in einer völlig anderen Medienlandschaft als vor 15 Jahren. Hat sich enorm verändert. Und heute haben wir eine viel polarisierendere Gesellschaft. Und wir haben auch viel sichtbarere, dringlichere Probleme und gesellschaftliche Kontroversen. Und da hat sich ganz viel verändert, auch in der Rezeption. Viele derjenigen, die im Fahrwasser damals von Wer bin ich, auch als Philosophen quasi auf die Bühne kamen, was ich ja total gut gefunden habe. Ne? Endlich hatten wir auch mal eine Kultur von Public Intellectuals in meiner Generation. Die letzten waren ja alle uralt. Ne? Also das war Sloterdijk, das war Safranski, das war Zizek, das war mit einem seiner beiden Füße.
Münkler hat sich
Habermas.
so bezeichnet.
Ja, Münkler, ja.
So hat er sich bei mir bezeichnet. Ja.
Als öffentlicher Intellektueller. Ja, okay. Aber das war, die Generation hatte eigentlich relativ lange, gibt es eine Lücke, keine Nachfolger. So ähnlich wie die Gruppe 47 in der Literatur einige Zeit keine Nachfolger hatte. Mhm. Und dann kam nach dem französischen Vorbild öffentliche Intellektuelle, in Frankreich heißen die alle Philosophen, die sich in die Gesellschaft einmischen, die in Talkshows vertreten sind, die medial wirksam sind. Und das ist ja jetzt zum Beispiel auch wieder auf dem Rückzug. Also es gab eine Zeit lang, da waren eben auch viele andere öffentliche Philosophen gerne in Talkshows eingeladen. Und jetzt in heutigen Zeiten, Ukraine-Krieg, Israel und so weiter, wirst du das kaum noch finden.
Warum?
Ich denke mal, wenn die gesellschaftlichen Kontroversen richtig hart und richtig ernst werden und wenn es richtig ums Eingemachte geht, dann fragt man keinen Philosophen. Ja, dann werden Journalisten gefragt und Journalisten laden Journalisten ein. Oder man lädt Militärs ein oder andere entsprechende Sachverständige. Aber wir hatten eine gute Zeit für Philosophie, weil so wenig los war. Also weil wir so wenig ganz ernste Probleme hatten, weil alles so gut lief in der Gesellschaft. Und das Spannende daran ist, eigentlich sind Philosophen ja fürs Gegenteil da.
Ja, das wollte ich gerade sagen.
Die große Zeit der Philosophie waren ja immer Chaostage und Katastrophenzeiten.
Das wäre jetzt mein Punkt. Warum haben wir jetzt nicht eigentlich mehr Debatten übers Denken, über Philosophie, weil wir in Krisen stecken?
Natürlich, über Narrative, über Denkschemata, mit denen wir Probleme angehen. Ne? Das wäre ja genau die Zeit, wo man genau darüber nachdenken
Warum
müsste.
ist das nicht so?
Also erstmal nochmal, ich gebe dir noch ein bisschen historisch Futter. Ja, also die Philosophie nach unserer Vorstellung entstand im alten Athen, als die Demokratie den Bach runterging. Also in Zeiten großer gesellschaftlicher Krisen. Die Demokratie funktioniert nicht besonders gut in Athen und in der Perikles-Zeit funktionierte sie fast überhaupt nicht mehr. Also passierte das, was immer in Gesellschaften passiert, Korruption, Vetternwirtschaft und so weiter. Und da entsteht die Philosophie und Philosophen versuchen, sich Bilder einer guten neuen Gesellschaft auszudenken. Und gehen dafür den Dingen auf den Grund. Ne? Platon, Aristoteles. Eine zweite große Boomzeit war die Zeit der Aufklärung. Das war die Zeit, als die Adelsgesellschaft an ihren Widersprüchen zugrunde ging und das Bürgertum aufstieg. Mhm. Und noch in der Zeit der Adelsgesellschaft haben die Philosophen quasi die Blaupausen entworfen für eine andere, nämlich eine bürgerliche Gesellschaft. Und diese beiden, das waren die beiden größten Zeiten, die die Philosophie erlebt hat, waren ja Umbruchzeiten, Krisenzeiten, in denen ein neues Gesellschaftsmodell entsteht, in dem viele alte Gewissheiten nicht mehr funktionieren und so weiter und so weiter. Also würde man heute sagen, ja, wir stehen vor lauter riesigen Revolutionen, ja, wir kommen ins zweite Maschinenzeitalter der künstlichen Intelligenz, wir erleben die große Verschiebung der geopolitischen Plattentektonik mit dem Abstieg Europas und Amerikas und dem Aufstieg Asiens. Wir müssen die Nachhaltigkeitsrevolution hinkriegen, sonst wollen wir über den Rest in 100 Jahren nicht mehr nachdenken. Also eigentlich eine große Zeit für Philosophen. Und jetzt haben wir folgendes Problem, und das ist die Antwort auf die Frage. Bei uns hat sich die mediale Landschaft enorm verändert. Also das, was Öffentlichkeit ist, hat sich sehr stark verändert. Bei uns treten Journalisten ja kaum noch in der Rolle auf, zu informieren. Ja, also journalistische Personen, die man kennt, die in der Öffentlichkeit stehen, die müssen ja nicht informieren, weil Informationen kann man sich im Netz ja jeder einzeln zusammensuchen. Dafür braucht er ja keine Journalisten mehr, sondern Journalisten treten auf in der Rolle von Weltdeutern, Welterklärern.
Wo denn? Man sind Talkshows.
Sie treten so in Talkshows aus, sie treten auch als Moderatoren so auf und sie treten als nicht nur in den Frakturkommentaren der FAZ, sondern überall in den Leitmedien auf. Das heißt also, der Meinungsanteil wird immer größer in Relation zum Informationsanteil. Und durch diese Verschiebung sehen sich sehr viele Journalisten selber in der Rolle der Weltdeuter und Welterklärer. Und es gibt da eine regelrechte Intellektuellenfeindlichkeit gegenüber all denen, die keine Journalisten sind. Weil die stehen ihnen in ihrem Welterklärungsmodus im Wege. Das ist eine ganz wichtige Veränderung. Und deswegen werden, je größer die Probleme sind, öffentliche Intellektuelle umso weniger gefragt. Lange Antwort auf eine kurze Frage.
Ich meine, klar gibt es irgendwie Journalisten in Talkshows, aber das sind ja meistens immer dieselben Köpfe. Und die meisten Kolleginnen, die ich kenne, die machen ja einfach ihren Job. Also
ich rede von diesen sogenannten Alpha-Journalisten, also diesen ganz 50 unglaublich wichtigen Journalisten, die hier in Berlin sich jeden Tag auf jeder Party wechselseitig auf die Füße treten.
Wen meinst du da so?
Och, ich glaube, die sind den Leuten, die uns jetzt zuhören, allsam bekannt.
Ja, wir müssen ja hier nicht raunen, ne? Der sagen kann, dass du mal sagst.
Nein, aber das sind natürlich klar die Chefredakteure und Politikchefs der großen überregionalen Zeitungen zum Beispiel.
Und die schaffen es, dass wir jetzt Intellektuelle und Philosophen kommen noch hören? Bist du etwa nicht eingeladen? Kann ich mir nicht vorstellen.
Ja, ich werde vielleicht noch gelegentlich eingeladen. Ich werde auch schon mal zum Ukraine-Krieg eingeladen, in dem sicheren Wissen, dass ich in eine Talkshow eingeladen werde, wo 4 Leute allesamt der gleichen Meinung sind. Und man könnte noch so überzeugend argumentieren und rhetorisch noch so gut sein. Gegen 4 verliert man immer. Das lernt man schon in der Schule.
Aber zurück zu der Perception dir gegenüber jetzt die letzten Jahre. Was mir aufgefallen ist, früher hast du dich, glaube ich, nicht immer öffentlich zu gefühlt allem geäußert. Das hat sich geändert, oder?
Ja, also wenn du Podcast hat was von, also
das war auch schon vor Lanz. Das war auch schon vor Lanz so.
Ja.
Weißt du, da hast du bei uns gesessen, Anfang
also
von
erstmal
Corona.
bestreite ich ja immer, dass ich mich angeblich zu allem äußere.
Ja, das wird dir
ich könnte
unterstellt.
jetzt lauter Themen sagen, zu denen ich mich nicht äußere. Ich könnte ja auch sagen, zu den Themen, zu denen ich am häufigsten gefragt werde, mich aber nicht äußere.
Aha.
Ja, das ist, was ich von Bitcoins und Kryptowährungen halte. Ja, oder ob ich für die Legalisierung von Hanf bin. Du kannst dir nicht vorstellen, wie oft ich das gefragt werde. Bei meinen öffentlichen Auftritten ständig.
Die Hälfte meiner Themen streiche ich schon mal raus.
Ja, genau. Nein, es gibt ganz viele Dinge, über die ich mich nicht äußere. Das fällt nur nicht auf.
Aber ganz viele, zu denen du dich äußerst.
Naja,
dann fällt dir das vielleicht mal auf die Füße. Ich meine, du hast bei uns noch da haben wir, das war Anfang Corona, da meintest du, in ein paar Jahren werden wir gar nicht mehr über die Corona-Zeit reden.
Ja. Ja, wir reden jetzt über die mangelhafte Krisenbewältigung und das, was damals unter den Teppich gekehrt wird. Darüber reden wir noch.
Das ist so gut.
Das ist, da reden wir viel zu wenig drüber.
Ja.
Ja. Also ich warte auch noch auf ein paar Entschuldigungsanrufe.
Von wem?
Naja, also ich meine Corona-Geschichte hast du ja vielleicht noch so ein bisschen in Erinnerung. Ich habe am Anfang der Pandemie begonnen, ein Buch zu schreiben über die Pflicht. In dem ich versucht habe, all den grundsätzlich Ungläubigen deutlich zu machen, dass der Staat durchaus das Recht hat, Grundrechte einzuschränken im Dienste des Gesundheitsschutzes. So, und dass das nicht eine Anmaßung des Staates ist, sondern dass das etwas ist, eine Verpflichtung und die auch in einer Kontinuität steht. Die ganze moderne Sozialgesetzgebung, das moderne Gesundheitswesen, von Gesundheitsämtern angefangen bis zum geht nicht, öffentliche Kassen und so weiter, beruht auf diesem Prinzip. So, danach bin ich angefeindet worden von Corona-Gegnern und auch von vielen Leuten am rechten Rand der Gesellschaft. Und angefeindet ist eine massive Untertreibung bis hin zu Morddrohungen und alles, was damit einhergeht. Ich war dann der Staatsphilosoph, der Systemling und so weiter. Ganz viele Leute haben gesagt, trau mir nicht mehr über den Weg und haben gedacht, da schmeißt sich jetzt einer an die Regierung ran und so weiter. Unerträglich, dieser Precht. So, dann kam der Punkt, den ich in meinem Buch über die Pflicht noch nicht thematisiert habe, weil es noch keine Impfstoffe gab. Und da ging es um die Impfpflicht. Und da ging es noch weitergehend darum, dass ein großer öffentlicher Druck entstand auf Eltern, sie sollten ihre Kinder impfen. Und da war ich gegen. Und heute würde das auch niemand mehr machen, weil es von Anfang an Riesenquatsch war, die Kinder zu impfen. Völlig daneben. Ja, mit dem Argument, dass der Impfstoff ja nicht vor Ansteckung schützt und die Kinder sollten ja nicht um ihrer selbst willen geimpft werden, sondern sie sollten geimpft werden, um Erwachsene nicht anzustecken. Jetzt wissen wir aber, dass eine Impfung vor Ansteckung überhaupt nicht schützt. Es macht offensichtlich gar keinen großen Unterschied. Damit ist dieses Argument vom Tisch. Zweitens.
Also der Fakt ist, dass das schon geschützt hat, nur nicht so sehr, wie behauptet wurde.
Naja, also um eine solche Maßnahme zu machen, hätte es also schon einen an die 100%igen Schutz geben müssen. Und da sind wir ganz, ganz weit von entfernt.
Aber du meintest gerade, es gab gar keinen Schutz. Also es gab schon
minimal.
Ja,
minimal, und das rechtfertigt eine solche Maßnahme nicht, weil es sich um einen Impfstoff handelte, der an Kindern natürlich nicht langfristig erprobt worden sind. Und Kinder sind pharmakologisch betrachtet keine kleinen Erwachsenen. Zweiter Punkt. Dritter Punkt. Die Eltern müssen eine Entscheidung fällen für ihre Kinder, weil die Kinder, ja, juristisch gesehen nicht beteiligungsfähig sind. Also die Kinder können diese Entscheidung nicht selber treffen. Jetzt sollen die Kinder für einen guten Zweck geimpft werden. Sie sollen also verzweckt werden, um Erwachsene nicht anzustecken. Und das widerspricht dem Kantschen Grundsatz der Menschenwürde, bei dem es heißt, der Mensch ist ein Zweck an sich, er darf nicht verzweckt werden oder er darf niemals Mittel zu einem höheren Zweck werden. Genau das haben wir aber in diesem Moment vorgehabt. So, 3 starke Argumente, ja, warum das Kinderimpfen falsch war. Was war die Reaktion unserer vorhin schon so nett thematisierten Leitmedien? Ja, Frankfurter Rundschau, Spiegel und so weiter. Ja, ich wurde als Professor Wirrwarr betrachtet. Im Spiegel durfte ich lesen, an meinen Händen klebt Blut. Und die Frankfurter Rundschau hat mich ins Querdenkerlager und in gefährliche Nähe zum rechten Rand attestiert und mich quasi dort einsortiert, wo die Leute saßen, die mir vorher Morddrohungen geschickt haben. Ich finde, eine vernünftige gesellschaftliche Aufarbeitung würde jetzt mal hingehen und der liebe Herr Evers vom Spiegel und ich weiß nicht mehr, wie der hochberühmte Journalist von der Frankfurter Rundschau ist, ich warte auf eine öffentliche Entschuldigung.
Ich weiß nicht, ob die noch kommen wird.
Ganz bestimmt.
Ja. Also, du warst gegen die Impfpflicht, warst du da? Also
ich war natürlich gegen die Impfpflicht.
Das auch.
Ja,
da gab es ja damals auch einen Kontext. Ich meine, muss man jetzt nicht wieder alles hervorholen, aber damals war ja der Kontext, die Krankenhäuser sind überlastet, als es losging mit der Debatte um die Impfpflicht durch die Ungeimpften. Und dann war halt die politische Vorstellung, okay, wir machen halt irgendwie eine Impfpflicht.
Genau, aber wir haben
und entlasten dadurch die Krankenhäuser in der Zeit.
Ja, ein utilitaristisches Argument, ja, aber unser Staat basiert nicht auf dem Grundsatz des Utilitarismus. Also nicht auf dem Grundsatz, wie viel Leidenschaft einer Maßnahme und wie viel Glück wird dabei hervorgebracht. Das haben die angelsächsischen Länder, die dürfen das auch machen. Bei uns ist der eiserne Grundsatz der Grundsatz der Menschenwürde. Und die Frage, ob ich jemanden zumuten kann, eine Maske zu tragen, ist eine ganz andere Frage, als ob ich jemanden dazu zwingen möchte, ja, sich eine Spritze setzen zu lassen und sich impfen zu lassen. Das können wir nicht genau als Gleiches ansehen, weil nur das Zweite ist ein unmittelbarer Eingriff in die Körperphysiologie, das Erste nicht. Und das ist ein ganz, ganz wichtiger Unterschied. Und den haben wir dann so Shifting Baselines, ne, in lauter ganz, ganz kleinen Schritten mal eben so vom Tisch gewischt. Und diese Dinge müssen in der Gesellschaft offen diskutiert werden. Und die konnten zu dem Zeitpunkt nicht offen diskutiert werden, ohne dass ein Sturm der Entrüstung losbrannt.
Aber am Ende gab es da keine Impfpflicht. Also hat ja die öffentliche Meinung und auch die Mehrheit im Parlament war ja dann auch deine Ansicht, oder?
Es gab eine Mehrheit für die Impfpflicht.
Ja, aber und nicht im Parlament und auch nur zeitweise in den Umfragen.
Es gab sie zeitweise und zwar nach Kassenlage. Und das kann man nicht machen. Du kannst nicht sagen, im Augenblick haben wir so und so viele Leute in den Krankenhäusern. Ah, nee, dann bin ich nicht für eine Impfpflicht. Und dann kommt in einem Monat schnell die Zahlen hoch. Ach nee, jetzt bin ich für eine Impfpflicht. Weil das, worüber wir hier reden, ist nicht nur eine Frage der Opportunität, sondern es ist eine Frage von Grundsätzen. Das habe ich ja gerade versucht, philosophisch zu erörtern, worin der Grundsatz besteht. Und das kippt man nicht mal ebenso im Eifer des Gefechts weg. Ja.
Bist du denn auch gegen die Masernimpfpflicht bei Kindern?
Wieso?
Nee, ich frage.
Also erstmal ist das ein Impfstoff, der über ganz lange Zeit...
Ist ja auch ein Eingriff in das unmündige Kind.
Ja, aber ein Impfstoff, der ganz, ganz lange getestet wird, zum Wohl der Kinder. Und nicht aus Angst, dass die Kinder andere anstecken. Ganz großer Unterschied. Da geht es um die Kinder. Da geht es nicht um die Kinder als mutmaßlicher Überträger.
Aber Corona war ja nicht nur einzige Thema, wo du dann immer viel Haue bekommen hast. Ärgerst du dich manchmal, dass du einfach manche Dinge sagst, die dann irgendwie missverstanden werden oder teilweise falsch sind?
Natürlich ärgert sich auch jeder Mensch darüber, sei das im Privaten oder im Öffentlichen, wenn er missverstanden wird, oder? Und wenn alle Äußerungen, die man getätigt hat, dekontextualisieren und dann konzertant auf einen einhauen, da ärgert sich jeder drüber.
Muss man das aber nicht mit einbeziehen, gerade als öffentlicher Intellektueller?
Natürlich, ich könnte das alles noch sehr, 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 sehr viel länger mit einbeziehen, was man rein theoretisch irgendwie falsch verstehen könnte. Und am Ende sage ich dann am besten gar nichts mehr.
Das wollen wir auch nicht.
Ja.
Aber hast du irgendwie deine Herangehensweise
Also ich bin
geändert,
absolut froh darüber, dass ich das zu Corona getan habe, was ich glaube, was richtig ist. Sowohl das Buch über die Pflicht halte ich nach wie vor für richtig und genauso halte ich nach wie vor für richtig, dass ich absolut dagegen war, Druck auf Eltern auszuüben, ihre Kinder gegen Corona impfen zu lassen. Ich halte beides für richtig.
Gibt es irgendwas, was du nicht mehr für richtig hältst, was du für jetzt die letzten Jahre?
Naja, es ist natürlich so, dass man im Podcast manchmal sich so ausdrückt, dass daran missverstanden werden können und dann ärgert man sich darüber, dass man sich missverständlich ausgedrückt hat. Das ist doch völlig klar.
Ich hoffe, das passiert heute nicht.
Ja, ich werde jetzt möglichst wenig sagen und werde mir deinen Rat beherzigen. Jetzt nur noch die Dinge zu sagen, wo man ganz, ganz, ganz sicher ist, dass man da nie Ärger für kriegt.
Das war ja nicht mein Rat. Ich frage nur, du bist ja auch...
Ich denke manchmal so ein bisschen an die alten Zeiten zurück, in dem so die Leute der Gruppe 47 ja in der Öffentlichkeit geredet haben, wie ihnen der Schnabel gewachsen ist. Und die haben dafür auch Ärger gekriegt. Ohne jeden Zweifel. Ne? Günter Grass hat in seinem Leben eine Menge Ärger für seine Äußerungen gekriegt. Martin Walser hat eine Menge Ärger für seine Äußerungen gekriegt. Auch Heinrich Böll für das, was er getan und gesagt hat. Aber es gab einen großen Unterschied. Der Unterschied war, dass man ihnen damals das Etikett streitbar angeklebt hat. Ja? Ein streitbarer Geist. Frisch und dürrenmatt. Ja, waren streitbar. Heute gibt es kein streitbar mehr. Heute gibt es umstritten. Und der Unterschied ist, streitbar bezieht sich auf eine Charaktereigenschaft. Umstritten ist ein Label, das die Medien einem anhängen. Damit haben sozusagen die Medien die Deutungshoheit und Deutungsmacht über jemanden übernommen und nicht, dass man jemand eine Eigenschaft zuspricht aufgrund seines Auftretens. Also die Leute der Gruppe 47 hätten selber von sich gesagt, dass sie streitbar sind. Aber sie hätten das Wort umstritten weit von sich gewiesen, so nach dem Motto, wer bestimmt darüber, wer verfügt darüber. Und das ist eine sehr interessante Verlagerung und das macht die Rolle eines öffentlichen Intellektuellen heute auch sehr viel schwieriger als früher.
Gehst du mittlerweile mit den großen Medien anders um? Oder meidest du sie sogar? Oder ist es mittlerweile egal?
Ich würde nicht sagen, dass ich sie grundsätzlich meide. So allgemein kann man das nicht sagen. Aber ich habe dem Spiegel schon 3 oder 4 Jahre lang kein Essay mehr angeboten.
Denn die schreibst du ja jetzt selbst. Ist ein bisschen lang gewesen jetzt für ein Spiegel-Essay, ne? Dein neues Buch?
Ja, man hätte eine Kurzform davon machen können, aber da es der politischen Ansicht des Spiegel doch in einigen wesentlichen Punkten widerspricht, bin ich auch nicht so sicher, ob die sich darüber gefreut hätten.
Aber die bilden ja auch schon andere Meinungen ab, beziehungsweise andere Haltung.
Je nach Thema, ja klar.
Ja. Das ist wie der längste Essay, den ich je gelesen habe.
Ehrlich?
Ja.
Mein Buch über künstliche Intelligenz hat ungefähr den gleichen Umfang und ist auch ein Essay.
Was auch ein Essay, ja?
Ja.
Okay.
Ein Essay ist ja eigentlich nicht dadurch charakterisiert, dass er kurz ist, sondern dass er eine gewisse Aufbaustruktur hat.
Weiß ich nicht.
Also erstmal ist...
Ich habe noch nie einen geschrieben.
Okay, ein guter Essay ist dadurch charakterisiert, dass er als sprachlich ein Grenzgänger ist. Also zwischen 2 Gattungen angesiedelt ist, nämlich zwischen der Gattung des Sachbuchs und der Gattung Literatur. Das heißt also, es ist ein ästhetisches Einkreisen eines Gegenstandes. Dann haben meine Essays, genauso wie das Buch über künstliche Intelligenz und das Buch über die Pflicht, immer die gleiche Aufbaustruktur, nämlich die Aufbaustruktur einer Sanduhr. So würde mich nie meine anderen Sachbücher über die Arbeit oder so, die dicken Bücher, ja, die würde ich niemals so aufbauen. Die Sanduhrformat ist, du fängst in der allgemeinst größtmöglichen Form mit den größtmöglichen Fragen an, arbeitest diese Fragen immer kleiner, bis du zu dem Nadelöhr kommst, auf das es dir ankommt, um das am Ende wieder in die große Perspektive zu öffnen. Und ein solcher Aufbau ist eine Möglichkeit. Es gibt viele Möglichkeiten, Essays zu schreiben, aber das ist sozusagen meine spezifische Möglichkeit, das zu machen. Und ich denke, dadurch kann man auf eine andere Art und Weise wirken, als wenn man ein trockenes Sachbuch schreibt.
Aber wir sind jetzt ja nicht hier, um nur über das Buch zu reden. Was ja jetzt 2 Jahre lang hier nicht in der Sendung. Ist viel passiert. Zuletzt EU-Wahl. Was du wieder nicht wählen?
Wir reden doch nicht darüber, oder was ich wähle. Ich glaube, du fragst mich das jedes Mal so mit der Beharrlichkeit eines Drehorgelmannes. Willst du mir da irgendwas liebenswürdig entlocken, was ich dir nicht erzähle?
Ja, weil du ja gar nicht wählen gehst. Darum frage ich ja nicht danach. Gehst du immer noch nicht wählen? Das frage ich. Weil ich habe letztens einen TUS gehabt, der geht nicht wählen. Branko Milanovic war hier, geht auch nicht wählen.
Ich habe noch nie
noch
nie ein Plädoyer dafür gehalten, dass man nicht wählen soll.
Ich weiß.
Das muss man ganz, ganz bewusst sagen. Ich freue mich über jeden, der wählen geht.
Aber du gehst ja nicht wählen.
Das behauptest du ja.
Ja, dementierst du ja nicht.
Ich weiß doch gar nicht. Ich habe es noch nicht bestätigt, Thilo.
Ja, warum?
Jetzt kannst du noch ganz lange hin und her drehen, du wirst nicht weiterkommen.
Aber kommt irgendwann ein Punkt, ich meine, wir haben ja AfD-Gefahr und so weiter, dass du irgendwann dann sagst, okay, ich gehe auf jeden Fall.
Ich finde es
jetzt
grundsätzlich gut, richtig und wichtig, wählen zu gehen. Ist das eine klare Aussage?
Aber du dementierst nicht, dass du nicht wählen gehst.
Ich bestätige es auch nicht.
Macht dir der Aufstieg der AfD Angst?
Mir macht im Augenblick vieles Angst. Der Aufstieg der AfD ist in der Tat auch beunruhigend.
Warum? Muss unsere Demokratie das nicht aushalten?
Ja, also...
Die hassen auch die Grünen.
Ich hasse die Grünen ja nicht. Ich bin so ein bisschen enttäuscht.
Ja. Reden wir gleich drüber.
Ja.
Warum AfD?
Also, Aufstieg der AfD. Meine Aufgabe ist ja nicht in erster Linie zu hassen und zu fürchten, sondern sich zu versuchen zu erklären, woran das wohl liegt. So. Und wenn man den allerallgemeinsten Satz darüber finden möchte, aus meiner Perspektive, warum gibt es diesen Aufstieg des Rechtspopulismus in Europa? Die AfD ist ja nun kein Spezialphänomen. Dann liegt das am Bedeutungsverlust Europas. Das ist der allgemeinste Grund. Die Leute kapieren, ahnen, wittern, dass Europa an Bedeutung verliert, einschließlich der in Europa versammelten Nationalstaaten. Ich meine mit Europa nicht die EU, sondern die europäischen Länder. Und die Angst vor dem Bedeutungsverlust führt dazu, a, all diejenigen zu suchen, die möglicherweise schuld dran sein können, und b, etwas zu finden, was die eigene Bedeutung wieder stärkt. Und das führt zum Beispiel im ersten Fall, mit die zu suchen, die daran schuld sein können, daran Immigration, das allerwichtigste und größte Problem unserer Gesellschaft zu sehen, weil dann hat man jemanden, der daran schuld sein kann, dass es einen Bedeutungsverlust gibt. Und zwar einen Bedeutungsverlust wirtschaftlicher Natur, politischer Natur und identitärer Natur. Man könnte ja sagen, es gibt viele Gründe für diesen Bedeutungsverlust. Und ohne Zweifel ist Migration ein sehr ernstes Problem unserer Gesellschaft, das sehe ich auch so. Aber es ist nicht der allein Verursacher dieses Bedeutungsverlustes. Aber der sichtbarste. Ne? Wenn man in Düsseldorf am Rhein entlang spaziert am Wochenende, ja, bis vor einem Jahr hatte dieser Grünstreifen in Düsseldorf den Spitznamen Gazastreifen. Ja, aktuell wird er nicht mehr so oft benutzt. Weil die Quote, nicht weil er bombardiert wird, sondern weil die Quote der Migranten dort sicher weit über 50% ist. Das heißt also, Migration ist heute sehr, sehr sichtbar. A, sind es viel mehr und B, sind sie sichtbarer. Ich komme ja noch aus einer Zeit, wo die Migranten sich versteckt haben. Also die Türken, die Anfang der 70er Jahre in Deutschland waren in der Öffentlichkeit quasi unsichtbar. Die trugen ausgemusterte Klamotten ihrer Väter und ihrer Großväter und die waren in Hinterhöfen und in Baracken und so weiter. Die hatten kein eigenes Selbstbewusstsein. Also wenn ich das vergleiche mit den Autokorsi, die man heute auf der Köhe und wo auch immer sieht, ne, wo sie mit den Imponierboliden die Menschen ihren Migrationsvordergrund zur Schau stellen und nicht mehr Migrationshintergrund, dann hat sich da natürlich enorm was verändert, nämlich ein enormes Erstarken des Selbstbewusstseins der Minderheiten. Das Wort Gastarbeiter wird heute bezeichnenderweise ja auch nicht mehr benutzt. So, das kann man einerseits positiv finden. Ja, man muss sich ja nicht, wenn man hier arbeitet und Teil der deutschen Gesellschaft ist, verstecken. Ja, und man kann auch zeigen, die Punkte, in denen man kulturell anders sind. Und auf der anderen Seite wird es eben von sehr vielen Menschen als Bedrohung empfunden, weil sie sich dann irgendwie fremd im eigenen Land fühlen. Diese Migration ist ein ernstes Thema, er hat sehr, sehr viele Facetten. Haben Markus Lanz und ich im Podcast auch sehr häufig über die verschiedenen Facetten gesprochen. Aber es ist nicht der Grund für den Bedeutungsverlust. Es ist sozusagen nicht die Wurzel des Problems, was wir heute haben.
Ich habe ja jetzt auch die letzten 100 Gäste immer wieder AfD-Aufstieg und so gehabt. Da wird dann eher gesagt, okay, es hat halt ökonomische, soziale Ursachen.
Ja, das sagen die Linken immer. Ja.
Du bist auch einer.
Ja, und dann sagen sie, ja, das ist die Ungleichverteilung und sowas alles. Ja, das spielt auch alles eine Rolle. Aber man muss sich einfach mal überlegen, ich meine, die Europäer haben sich jetzt über die letzten 200 Jahre daran gewöhnt, zu den reichsten Nationen der Welt zu gehören. Sie haben sich daran gewöhnt, die politisch einflussreichsten zu werden. Irgendwann hat die USA sie überflügelt. Aber früher waren sie auch die militärisch einflussreichsten. Das heißt, das ist eigentlich so unser inwendiges Selbstverständnis, dass wir trotz zweier Weltkriege und so weiter nicht gänzlich abgelegt haben. Erstmal haben die anderen die Weltkriege gewonnen und nicht verloren wie die Deutschen. Das hat ihnen also sozusagen identitätsmäßig ja keinen Abbruch getan. Die Deutschen mussten sich neu erfinden. Aber die Grundhaltung ist eigentlich immer noch, dass wir über die Geschicke der Welt zu entscheiden haben. Und jetzt sehen wir mehr und mehr, dass das nicht mehr funktioniert. Es funktioniert militärisch nicht mehr, es funktioniert ökonomisch immer weniger. Und auch die politische Bedeutung nimmt relativ ab. Und die Globalisierung schien ja zunächst mal die politische Bedeutung der reichen Länder, insbesondere der westlichen Länder, immer weiter zu steigern. Ja, parallel mit Fukuyamas Vorstellung, das werden jetzt überall in der Welt liberale Demokratien, der Handel verbindet die ganzen Menschen miteinander und alle folgen uns.
Kapitalismus hat gewonnen.
Kapitalismus hat gewonnen und damit auch Europa hat gewonnen. USA haben gewonnen.
Der Westen.
Der Westen. Ja, und jetzt Kapitalismus hat gewonnen, das stimmt. Der Kapitalismus hat die Weltrevolution gemacht, aber eben nicht nur bei uns, ja, sondern auch in China. China ist ein durch und durch kapitalistisches Land, viel, viel kapitalistischer als Deutschland. Und es ist enorm erfolgreich. Und wenn man sich anguckt, dass in Indien und China zusammen an die 3 Milliarden Menschen leben, von 8 Milliarden Menschen auf der Welt, und dass diese enorme Wirtschaftskraft sich immer weiter entfalten wird, da kommt noch Indonesien zu, Vietnam und so weiter, dann gerät Europa mit seinen einigen 100 Millionen zunehmend in die Defensive, oder das ist schon altmodisch ausgedrückt, es wird bedeutungsloser. Und das spüren die Leute, dass sie bedeutungsloser werden. Aber ihre Nationen verlieren an Bedeutung.
Aber ich kenne auch einige, die entweder AfD wählen, überlegen, AfD zu wählen oder gar nicht mehr zur Wahl gehen, weil sie mit den herrschenden Parteien unzufrieden sind. Ich habe da von denen noch...
Nee, da denken die nicht drüber nach.
Ich habe noch nie gehört, dass es denen eigentlich um Deutschlands Rolle oder Europas Rolle in der Welt geht. Also die erzählen mir dann eher, okay...
Das ist auch nicht in ihrem Bewusstsein, aber das ist subkutan da. Das ist ja haben wir nicht gesagt, Philosophie macht das Implizite im Expliziten deutlich? Also guckt sozusagen hinter die Kulissen, auch hinter die Kulissen, wo man bei sich selbst nicht hinterguckt.
Ich höre immer...
Ich sehe die Migration und denke, die ist schuld. Ja? Aber warum suche ich überhaupt einen Schuldigen? Warum suche ich einen Schuldigen an einer angeblichen Misere? Worin drückt sich denn die Misere aus? Die Misere drückt sich darin aus, dass das Wohlstandsversprechen, das Deutschland seit der Gründung der Bundesrepublik zusammengehalten hat, eine irrsinnig erfolgreiche Geschichte. Und das wissen auch ganz viele AfD-Wähler, dass dieses Wohlstandsversprechen nicht mehr dauerhaft einlösbar ist. Und dann suchen sie die Schuld bei den Migranten oder an der Nachhaltigkeit und erneuerbaren Energien oder an den Grünen und so weiter. Dann brauchen wir alle möglichen Schuldigen dafür. Aber was die Menschen wirklich begriffen haben, ist, dass dieser permanente wirtschaftliche Fortschritt, der ja eine ungeheure Geschichte ist, Erfolgsgeschichte ist, dass der nicht weitergeht. Und wenn man das spürt, dann sucht man im zweiten Punkt die Verantwortlichen dafür. Und dann findet man 1000 Sachen, die einen stören und was früher besser gewesen ist. Deswegen sage ich, das muss nicht reflektiert sein, aber das steht in der Grundmotivation dahinter. Und ich glaube, dass das überall ist. Also die Franzosen haben ja die gleiche Problem mit ihrem Bedeutungsverlust wie die Deutschen. Und die Engländer haben das auch. Da hat die Angst vor dem Bedeutungsverlust in den Brexit geführt, der möglicherweise den Bedeutungsverlust weiter beschleunigt hat. Worum ging es denn in Großbritannien anderes als Angst um Bedeutungsverlust? Also ich glaube, dass das eine Riesenrolle spielt. Und ich glaube auch, dass die Trump-Wähler, Make America Great Again, dass das Thema ist Bedeutungsverlust der USA.
Also ich dachte auch Europa. Ich dachte auch Europa.
Wie auch Europa?
Ja, dass die Rechtsextreme in den USA auch Bedeutungsverlust Europa als...
Nee, schon ein Bedeutungsverlust USA.
Aber
die kennen Europa gar nicht.
Aber Wohlstandsversprechen, darauf wollte ich ja hinaus. Das ist aus meiner Sicht ja immer die Ursache, ne? Also diese Zukunftsangst, Überforderung mit den Lebenshaltungskosten, Angst vor Rentenarmut, Armut im Alter, die viel zu niedrigen Löhne und dann natürlich auch die krasse Ungleichheit.
Ich will ja diese ganzen Probleme nicht wegreden, die spielen eine Riesenrolle. Das ist mal das Problem mit linken Analysen, bin ich ja aufgewachsen.
Aber die rein
materiellen
da kann man ja
Analysen.
Was machen. Da kann man ja was machen bei den Sachen,
kann man. Aber ich will nur sagen, die rein materiellen Analysen, ne, das ist ja klassisch. Also jeder, der marxistisch geschult ist, ja, der guckt sich die Produktionsverhältnisse an und weiß, alles, was dann ein Überbau ist, an Ideologie und an politischen Parteien und so weiter, spiegelt eigentlich nur ökonomische Probleme wider. So. Das ist nicht gänzlich falsch, aber das nur ist falsch. Es spiegelt nicht nur ökonomisch, es spiegelt auch und nicht unwesentlich ökonomische Probleme wider. Ja, in den Verteilungsfragen lässt sich eine Menge machen, das stimmt. Und kennst du Parteien, die wild entschlossen sind, an den Verteilungsfragen etwas zu ändern?
Wild entschlossen?
Wild entschlossen, nicht rhetorisch entschlossen, sondern wild entschlossen.
Nein.
Das macht die Sache schwierig.
Aber ich meine, wenn wir jetzt als Hauptursache, wie du sagst, den Bedeutungsverlust Europas für den AfD-Aufstieg oder allgemein Faschismusaufstieg.
Der europäischen Länder, ne?
In den europäischen Ländern.
Ja.
Gleichzeitig wird das ja, also stimmt das ja, dass die auf einer globalen Ebene Europa weniger bedeutend wird. Ne?
Ja.
Also multipolare Welt und so weiter. Wir sind ja jetzt ein geopolitischer Block von vielen. Das heißt, dieser Verlust.
Wir sind noch nicht mal ein Block. Wir sind ein heillos zerstrittenes Ensemble. Wie übrigens die arabische Welt auch.
Ja, aber was kann man denn dagegen machen? Ich meine, Europa wird ja wirklich im Vergleich zu früher unbedeutender.
Richtig. Also deswegen sagt man ja schon seit langer Zeit. Also schon als Helmut Schmidt vor den Chinesen, von uns die Chinesen erklärte, er hat ja nicht gewarnt, aber er hat den Aufstieg Chinas ja immer schon sozusagen antizipiert. Ne? Er hat schon vor 10 und 20 Jahren gesagt, die Europäer sind zur Zusammenarbeit, zum Zusammenhalt, zur Vereinigung gezwungen, um in einer künftigen, damals noch nicht so genannten, aber von Schmidt bereits gesehenen multipolaren Weltordnung überhaupt ein Faktor zu sein. Und die wesentlichste Voraussetzung dafür wäre, eigenständig Politik machen. Das gibt's aber nicht. Und zwar auf beiden Ebenen nicht. Also einerseits ist die Außenpolitik Europas Politik im Fahrwasser der USA und nicht Politik im Fahrwasser Europas. Das ist der erste Punkt. Und zweitens besteht in allen wesentlichen politischen Dingen innerhalb Europas nicht die Einigkeit, die man bräuchte, um tatsächlich eine solche Einheit zu schaffen. Macron spricht da von einem dritten Pol. Alle Franzosen wollten das. Und die Franzosen sind, im Augenblick gibt es ja Riesenprobleme zwischen Frankreich und Deutschland, die daherrühren, dass die Deutschen den europäischen Pfad verlassen haben. Sondern sich in allen militärischen und außenpolitischen Fragen, die jetzt eine große Rolle spielen, sozusagen als Kinder der USA sehen und nicht in erster Linie als Europäer. Und die Franzosen, die diese Zwergenrolle an der Seite der USA nie gemocht haben, ja, von de Gaulle an schon nicht und Mitterrand auch nicht und so, die haben immer darauf gehofft, dass man mit den Deutschen zusammen ein eigenständiges Europa machen kann. Und da waren sie schon mal in der Kohl-Zeit näher dran, da waren sie in der Schröder-Zeit ganz nah dran. Dann sind sie in der Merkel-Zeit wieder ein bisschen davon weggekommen und jetzt ist Schluss. Jetzt ist der Traum ausgeträumt. Mit der Ampelregierung geht das nicht. Deswegen verstehen sich Scholz und Macron nicht.
Aber trotzdem ist Le Pen ja im Kommen in Frankreich.
Ja,
obwohl
Scholz
Frankreich
und Le Pen werden sich jetzt nicht besser verstehen. Also in dem Punkt gibt es, glaube ich, keinen riesigen Unterschied. Also ich glaube, dass Le Pen von den gleichen Kräften beseelt wird wie jeder französische Präsident bislang. Ja, nämlich ein starkes Europa mit einem starken Frankreich. Und das ist für die Deutschen total uninteressant.
Ja.
Die Deutschen sehen ihre Politik im Fahrwasser der USA und nicht in einer Gemeinschaft mit Frankreich. Nicht mehr.
Kommen wir vielleicht gleich nochmal drauf zurück, aber nochmal zur AfD. Wird ja gerade so Verbot der AfD diskutiert. Wärst du dafür?
Ich kenne so ein bisschen die Geschichte der Versuche, Parteien zu verbieten. Hat man ja schon häufiger mal gemacht. Man hat die KPD verboten, Ende der 50er Jahre. Dann hat sich die DKP gegründet. Man hat die NPD mal verboten. Aber es gab
es gescheitert.
Ja, also
weil sie zu unbedeutend war.
Zu unbedeutend. Das ist auch noch schön. Ja, da haben wir ein großes Problem, ne? Man kann Parteien nicht verbieten, wenn sie zu unbedeutend sind, und man kann sie aber auch nicht verbieten, wenn sie zu bedeutend sind. Man kann nicht eine Partei, die am Ende vom Fünftel der Bevölkerung gewählt wird, verbieten.
Warum nicht? Wenn sie demokratiefeindlich,
ja, man kann das vielleicht, verfassungsrechtlich kann man das sicher.
Und das
was produziert man?
Das entscheidet ja nur das Verfassungsgericht.
Was produziert man? Also, wir gehen doch diese Frage unter dem Gesichtspunkt an, ja, schaffen wir damit mehr Gutes oder mehr Schlechtes, wenn wir die AfD verbieten, oder? Es geht ja nicht um irgendein Prinzip, sondern es geht darum, dass wir unsere liberale Demokratie, ja, ohne dass sie sich selbst schadet, bestmöglich erhalten wollen. Und ohne, dass sie gegen ihre eigenen Prinzipien verstößt. Ja, weil sonst ist sie nicht das, was sie sein will. So. Und wenn wir jetzt die Partei verbietet und dann im Osten 30, Thüringen 35% der Wähler, mit Abstand stärkste Partei, Wähler einer Partei sind, die verboten worden ist, dann will ich nicht wissen, wie die Reaktion darauf ausfällt. Also was gewinnen wir und was verlieren wir? Diese Frage muss man sich ja stellen.
Aber gewinnen
die Partei ist ja nicht weg, wenn man sie verbietet, oder? Also die Partei ist weg, aber die Wähler sind nicht weg. Und der Grund, warum die Partei gewählt wurde, ist auch nicht weg.
Ja. Aber wir verhindern, dass quasi eine demokratiefeindliche, verfassungsfeindliche Partei an die Macht kommt. Und dann quasi mit den Instrumenten und Mitteln der Demokratie die Demokratie abschafft.
Genau, das ist das, wovor wir Angst haben.
Das waren die Lehren aus der Weimarer Republik.
Das ist das, wovor wir Angst haben.
Und darum haben wir jetzt den Cheatcode im Grundgesetz. Parteiverbot ist möglich.
Ja.
Oder?
Ja, aber dann gibt man sich einen anderen Vornamen und eine andere Abkürzung. Und dann kann man die Partei auch wieder verbieten.
Ich glaube, so einfach ist das gar nicht, dass du da einfach
ja,
nur
das große
dich
Problem
neu
ist doch,
gründest.
du kannst ja die AfD nicht aufgrund ihres Parteiprogramms verbieten.
Nee, gibt ja
Also ich
andere
weiß nicht, ob du es mal komplett gelesen hast, ist ja nicht besonders lang. Ich habe mir die Mühe mal gemacht, das Satz für Satz und so weiter zu lesen und auch versucht, das zu interpretieren und so weiter. Da steht mit Sicherheit nichts drin, weswegen man die Partei verbieten muss. Wenn wir die Partei verbieten wollen, dann liegt das daran, weil wir solchen Figuren wie Höcke, und da gibt es noch viele andere von, nicht entfernt über den Weg trauen und denen genau das zutrauen, wovon du gerade gesprochen hast. Das musst du erstmal juristisch dingfest machen können. Das ist nicht einfach.
Aber ich meine, wurde ja gerade in Münster unter Beweis gestellt. Also da hat ja das Gericht diese Klage abgewiesen von der AfD, dass sie da als Verdachtsfall das Bundesverfassungsschutz. Und da musst du ja die Fakten auf den Tisch legen, die juristischen Fakten. Da sieht es ja ganz gut aus.
Ja.
Also
ich kann mir nicht vorstellen, dass man das Problem des Rechtspopulismus, einschließlich der Rechtsradikalen, durch Verbote dieser Art lösen kann. Das kann ich mir nicht vorstellen.
Das war ja auch nicht die Frage. Es geht darum, die AfD
also
zu verbieten, bevor sie an die Macht
Stell dir jetzt mal vor, in der Weimarer Republik hätte man die NSDAP verboten, nachdem sie 20% oder mehr gekriegt hätte. Meinst du, damit wäre Hitler zu verhindern gewesen?
Weiß ich nicht.
Ja, ich auch nicht. Aber ich stelle mir die Frage, ob wir den Hebel an der richtigen Stelle ansetzen, wenn wir es über ein Verbotsverfahren machen.
Aber jetzt im Nachhinein wünschte ich mir, dass sie es gemacht hätten, weil dann wäre es vielleicht anders ausgegangen.
Ich teile deinen Optimismus nicht. Dann hätte man irgendeine andere Partei, die Deutschnationalen, unterwandert, hätte das mit denen gemacht.
Gibt es dann einen guten Grund für dich, das vielleicht trotzdem zu probieren? Am Ende kann ja nur quasi...
Ich glaube, dass der Hauptgrund, warum man das macht, ist, das Image der AfD zu schädigen. Das ist das, was wir im Augenblick ja häufig machen. Potsdam ist auch ein Beispiel dafür. Oder die ganzen Auseinandersetzungen mit Herrn Krader. Kennst du dich ja deutlich besser mit aus als ich. Das sind ja Skandalisierungen von Dingen, die man zu Recht skandalisieren kann, die dazu führen sollen, zusätzliche Wähler abzuhalten. Dass die Partei nicht noch weiter wächst. Also über diesen Stammkreis von 15-16% hinaus nicht weiter anwachsen kann, weil wir immer wieder Gründe finden, Negativschlagzeilen zu produzieren, um warnend den Finger für all diejenigen, die eine Affinität zur AfD haben, aber unentschieden sind, davon abzuhalten, diese Partei zu wählen. Und das ist bislang eine sehr erfolgreiche Strategie, wenn man mal überlegt, dass die AfD in Umfragen bis zu 22% bei der Europawahl hochgeschnellt war und am Ende mit 15-16% durchs Ziel gegangen sind, ist das tatsächlich eine wirkungsvolle Strategie gewesen.
Aber was ist denn jetzt die Alternative, wenn wir das jetzt nicht versuchen zu verbieten, weil am Ende entscheidet das nur das höchste Gericht? Lassen wir...
Ich könnte jetzt eine ganze Palette von Möglichkeiten aufzählen, die können wir ja mal durchgehen. Also,
aber willst du es darauf ankommen lassen, dass die an die Macht kommen?
Also man kann ja auch den Trick machen, den die Dänen gemacht haben. Ja, die dänische Volkspartei ist die gleichen Kandidaten wie die AfD, zum Teil auch rechts von der AfD. Ja, ganz üble Gesellen. Da hat die Sozialdemokratie deren Parteiprogramm übernommen. Ja, also absolut restriktive Migrationspolitik und so weiter. Die haben das war quasi eine Art feindliche Übernahme. Und wir nehmen denen einfach das, wofür sie sind, weg und machen das als eine Partei, vor der man keine Angst haben muss.
Das erleben wir jetzt teilweise schon in Migrationspolitik.
Genau, die CDU ist sich uneinig da drin, ne? Also, aber wenn es nach Merz gehen würde, würden die ungefähr dasselbe machen.
Ja, aber wir erleben doch jetzt schon irgendwie, dass Migration eingeschränkt werden muss, Bezahlkarte,
genau, Also man schadet der Partei, indem man ihre Positionen übernimmt. Vielleicht nicht zu 100%, sondern zu 70%, aber ja, und man andere Worte dafür benutzt.
Aktuell wird ja offenbar beim Thema Migration ja quasi rechte Politik gemacht, damit die Rechten nicht noch stärker werden.
Genau.
Funktioniert nicht. Gibt denen nur Recht.
Naja, weiß ich nicht, ob es nicht funktioniert. Also bislang scheint es ja zu sein, dass die Stutzung bei 15-16% bislang funktioniert hat. Aber ich gebe dir recht, es muss nicht dauerhaft funktionieren. Und wenn man sich die Aussichten der Wirtschaftslage für die nächsten Jahre anguckt, ja, dann könnte eben der Bedeutungsverlust, von dem ich gesprochen habe, auch ökonomisch, dass nicht das Fell des Bären kleiner wird und nicht mehr größer wird, was man verteilen kann. Das könnte eintreten. Und dann wird es sehr, sehr, sehr schwer, überhaupt was zu finden, was den weiteren Aufstieg des Rechtspopulismus aufhält.
Du wolltest noch mehr Alternativen uns nennen. Okay. Also rechte Politik machen, um die Rechten abzuhalten.
Dann gibt es natürlich immer Entzauberung durch Regieren. Ne? Das werden wir jetzt auf Landesebene vielleicht das erste Mal erleben in Thüringen. Ich bin da richtig neugierig. Also, wenn jetzt Björn Höcke tatsächlich Ministerpräsident in Thüringen werden sollte, ja? Du weißt, was die Kompetenzen der Bundesländer sind.
Recht wenig.
Die Kompetenzen der Bundesländer sind Schule, Bildung, Polizei, Kirche und Medien. Ich glaube, über Kirche müssen wir im Osten nicht lange reden. Ja, da sind nur noch 3. Also werden jetzt kein Germanenkult irgendwo eingerichtet und katholische Kirchen werden jetzt nicht umgemünzt in Haine, Tempel und Tink-Veranstaltungsstellen. Also das wird sicher nicht passieren. Bleiben die anderen 3 Sachen übrig. Was könnte schlimmstenfalls in Bildung und Kultur passieren? Ich stelle mir immer vor, ich kenne die Schulbücher nicht in Thüringen. Aber ich könnte mir vorstellen, dass in diesen Schulbüchern, wenn es irgendwie da von Kindern die Rede ist, dass ein ausgeglichenes Verhältnis von Mädchen und Jungs ist und dass das ein oder andere Kind einen türkischen Namen hat oder so. Könnte ich mir vorstellen. Ich glaube, so sehen heute Lesebücher aus oder Schulbücher.
Weiß ich nicht.
Ich auch nicht, aber glaube ich mal. Und das könnte man rückgängig machen. Ja, muss ja nicht Hans und Grete wieder einführen oder so, wie die Schulbücher meines Vaters, Jahrgang 33. Ja, müssen auch nicht Horst heißen und so, aber da könnte man natürlich ein bisschen was verändern.
Na, die AfD will doch irgendwie Computer und Tablets aus der Schule verbannen.
Ja, gut.
Nicht so schlimm.
Also dadurch werden Schulen nicht zu Nazi-Schulen. Ja. Okay. Ich glaube, es gibt mehr Leute, die durch Computer und Tablets zu Nazis geworden sind, als ohne. Also das ist ja heute ein wunderbares Verbreitungsmedien der Rechten. Also ich kann mir jetzt nicht wirklich vorstellen, was wäre eine rechte Kultur- und Bildungspolitik mal im realistischen Rahmen. Preise ausloben für was? Für völkisches Gedankengut? Kann ich mir alles nicht richtig vorstellen. Vielleicht bin ich auch zu naiv und habe die Fantasie nicht dafür. Nehmen wir den nächsten Sektor, Polizei. Ist das schon gefährlicher? Bei Polizei könnte weggucken. Ne? Also so schlampig.
Big poles down, house is damaged. Gas station canopy destroyed.